They're probably not reserved now.
Okay.
Because everybody's here, I think. Okay.
I will read those.
Okay. Okay.
As I said, but
You guys have this room. I have a chance to sign in on the.
I just told her that she can do the board works.
Okay.
So there's.
Right.
Three elements there.
I think so.
maybe it's for using the water on the garage. That's my word.
I got this.
You want the agenda? Okay, this is the, they don't want people to do their Broadband meetings. Yeah, I think this was, I didn't just Broadband. I will, I don't think that's.
So yeah, that's the agenda up there. Over here.
Yeah, thank you, good. Good thing about it. Are you looking?
Here is. But we're still pretty. Everybody was running. Yeah, don't look at that. I know. Never gotten anybody with a ladder up there. No. You know, we'll make it other days, like, you know, other work. Okay. Right.
Well, we can have everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a why for she was a bit there and so later. Let's see that on that. Let's see. I did sweat on for a while.
She is, yes.
Good evening. 6 o'clock on July 30th, and it's the Broadband board work session. You would.
And with allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Here for the Region 10 broadband discussion and introduction.
Yeah, so I will have Michelle and Corey. This will be, so Michelle and Corey are both from Region 10. So they're the operators of the project after the middle mile. So that's where we are. They're gonna give you a little bit of background about how this project came to be.
Glad to do that. Am I okay to speak from here, or do you want me to wait for us?
Well, I can hear you fine. You usually try to get up and stand.
Yeah, so,
Comfortable with.
sure. All right, so, ask questions and, make jokes, please. So, Corey Riddle, Region 10, I'm a network engineer, where I live in Crested Butte, so a small town, end of one road. And, we're based in Montrose, so basically an economic development entity that does a number of different community services. And one of the projects that got into a number of years ago was broadband. So we've acquired and built about a little over 600 miles of fiber throughout our 6 counties. And we look at the map here. Can you scroll it up just a little bit?
Yeah.
Sometimes they tell you. I know.
So, we're on the west, Region 10 is comprised of 6 counties and 18 communities, and we're on the western side of the state. So we are the farthest from Denver, from Salt Lake City, from Albuquerque. We're geographically in this really isolated area. And we have the same things that you guys experience: great distances, small population, geographic challenges, and really market failure at the end of the day. There's just not enough revenue for private industry to build and develop the core infrastructure to deliver the services from the cities to our region. So we got involved in this. So we get advanced one. Right there.
There we go.
Well, it's keeping it here. Yeah, that is gross. I have a
Okay,
PDF.
so the goal that we had.
I'll
was-
work on this for you.
So the goal we had was to get to a source of bandwidth to feed our local private industry ISPs. And we wanted to bring that source of bandwidth from the major cities and from the major national networks, with which are Lumen, CenturyLink. Go ahead. Starlink. To basically bring those sources of bandwidth from these major locations. And these networks of Zayo, AT&T, Verizon, you can name the big ones, the NFL cities. These are the national networks that move traffic around from our little devices to the cloud services and servers in major data centers. So go down one slide. Our second goal was to get to the cloud providers. These are the data centers that have the applications and the software. When you use an EMS application and you bring up an account, an application, and some data and asset, it's not sitting on your phone. It's sitting in a server somewhere in a data center nowhere near Western Colorado. So we wanted to get to the cloud providers. About 60% of the applications that you use today, whether it's Netflix or Microsoft Cloud or anything Microsoft or Google related, all sits in these data centers. So we wanted to get to cloud and content. That was our other primary advancement. Okay, so initially, Region 10 decided to take our 6 counties in our area and build a path to Denver. And we saw funding for that. When I first started the position, part of that funding was in place, and we worked with DOLA to accelerate that funding significantly. The other goal we had as Region 10 was to connect down to Region 9, which is Durango and the 5 counties in Region 9, basically the Durango and Cortez areas, as well as the 2 tribes. So in that case, we wanted to be able to extend those services even beyond Region 10. Along the way, a lot of communities, including Colburn, put their hand in the air and said, please don't pass us by. Please make sure that if you're going to build this infrastructure, let's make sure we all participate in it. We heard you and we worked with your towns, and we are outside of our 4 6 counties, but we put a significant amount of effort into working with everybody. So that's the original design. Here's our 6 counties roughly, and here's our equipment. So we call them carrier neutral locations. They're basically equipment rooms. They have air conditioners, backup power, they have fiber coming into them, and they're places where any ISP can come in and lease space to put their equipment in to then serve the last mile going to homes and businesses and community anchor institutions. So basically, we want those private industry players to be able to get the revenue and support the end users. We're just trying to provide a wholesale source of bandwidth to those ISPs. We're not here to compete with the ISPs. We watched a large project 10 years ago do exactly that. They are not in this room because of the lessons learned. And I was one of the people trying to right that ship. It's not an employee, but I wanted to make sure that we took what was learned there and built a better mousetrap, something that actually delivered. So that's our 6 counties. Those are our 14 CNLs within our counties. Those are the different locations that we're trying to get to. Denver, Salt Lake, Albuquerque, and Dallas. Can you advance? And along the way, Mesa and Garfield County and individual communities said, please help us build lateral fibers from the backbone. Please help us build the CNLs and come up with the designs and work with DOLA for the funding. And please help us design and acquire the equipment requisite to tap in and use the backbone fiber to bring this source to our towns. It's an economic development driver. Same thing down in Region 9, down below. Actually, zoom out. Region 9 down below, there you go. There's 2 more that aren't shown here. There's actually 5 CNLs, and there's fiber being built along Highway 151 in Region 9. So they're very active. And as this is developed, we've now seen the San Luis Valley and the Southeast come into it and say, hey, we would like to participate in this ring as well. So I'll let you advance one. Together with the 3 in the north, central, and the south, there will be as many as 45 individual equipment rooms to provide services to last mile ISPs. And many of our last mile ISPs are in multiple communities, are growing into multiple communities, or are very entrenched in their home community. It's kind of a mix. So it's up there, it's there for them to use. So, do you advance one? So our backbone, right now, what is currently funded and under construction, it's being built. And we tend to acquire the fiber on existing cables. We don't want to build it. We have to build it. We'll do it. So our preference is to buy some strands on an existing cable. Because we have leased fiber from Denver to Grand Junction. We have leased fiber all the way down into Newport. And we will add on to that agreement to reach Cortez and Durango. We have construction going down on Highway 151 to reach Pagosa Springs. That's almost 3 sides of this ring. So the reason for the ring is if we have a failure on one side, equipment, fiber cut, power outage, with God, whatever it is, something takes a portion of the ring down, the traffic reroutes the other direction, the general idea. So that's the backbone piece. And I want to really be specific about that term backbone. The only purpose of the backbone is to move traffic wholesale from Grand Junction to Denver, Denver to Durango, around the backbone. I'll go over an access piece in a moment. Advance one. So local routing matters. It matters at the local level and it matters at the backbone level. If we have a failure on I-70, mudslide occurs, and that traffic can't come from Denver out to Full. We have a network that also moves traffic out to Grand Junction and down to Albuquerque. All those services continue and persist. If we have a fire down here in Durango, coastal digger up on Levita Pass. Levita Pass, a lot of names here. Levita Pass. That traffic reroutes and moves out. Locally, if you have a CNL and a lateral, say 19 miles of fiber, you have some area that is a single point of failure. So if somebody cuts that line, and it's got both our east and our west, yeah, there's limits to what we can do with the funding. However, if there's a mudslide, there's a power outage, a security issue, our traffic goes the opposite, the alternate direction. You have both local routing and backbone. Advancement. So we have a couple layers of the network. The first is the cabling, the physical fiber. Everybody's seen optical fiber, like goes down to glass. You know, you can't actually see it, but it's still there. This is the optical equipment that we put onto the fiber. This actually moves the light along the fiber. It's basically a mix of prisms, really fast black, and some fancy management software. Advanced one. On top of that, we placed routers. And the routers start, but the larger routers go in Denver, Grand Junction, and Durango. And those are the routers that are peer, they're connected to the large national networks. That forms the backbone of our network. And we're still in the backbone phase here. Advanced one. So this is what the internet routing piece looks like. We have the ability to move traffic in either direction. Advanced one. Now we talk about the access side. How do we get to all the small communities? We're all in small communities for the most part. So how do we get off the backbone and into here? Well, in this case, we went to CDOT and we leased from CDOT one additional pair of fiber. And that pair of fiber just goes from Glenwood to Grand Junction. However, that fiber drops out and stitches town by town by town. So it leaves Glenwood and goes into Silk, into Newcastle, into Parachute, into Rifle, and on and on and on. Probably getting into problem. But close enough. The I-70. We're not presenting its land. Yeah, that's yeah. So the idea is that each of the communities benefits and that they get an east and a west out of there. You get a lateral into the town, we place the equipment, and by having an east and a west path, you naturally get twice the capacity. Right, so I've got 100 gig east and 100 gig going west for each town, at least day one. We could change that over time, but it's a significant increase in capacity coming to these towns. So that's basically what we're looking at. This entire orange route from Glenwood to Grand Junction was not in Region 10's original plans. This has all been designed for your benefit. The whole idea was to work with DOLA at Dana and Patrick and the whole organization's request and support these communities. So move forward one. So this is kind of the optical transport. It's basically the same thing. It's just the prisms and flashlights. This is the routing piece. That's not terribly interesting. Move forward one. This is the access routing, so this is particularly important, and this is really kind of what's happening in Florida. Even though your site, your router sits down here, this router sees east, and he sees west. So if path is withdrawn, not available in either direction, that local router makes a decision as to how to move your traffic up to the larger network. That's the key difference. Most of the cable companies, the telco, all these large companies will transport your network back to these sites and then make a routing decision. We are making routing decisions locally in each of the communities. If we're out here in Montrose, that traffic goes north or south, if there's a break, it makes a local decision, it doesn't wait. So like a cable TV company will often have, like in Gunnison, they'll have a single route out, not utilize a second route because of cost. And they transport to a place where they then make internet routing decisions. So, example. I've got a technical, but, so the carrier neutral locations, these are pretty simple. We came up with them about 15 years ago. They're an equipment room. It's a fiber cement building, like what you'd see at the base of a cell tower. It's got a generator outside, dual air conditioning, HVAC units. We put an IP camera in there, so if we drop a ladder, we can better at not dropping ladders. We actually had some damage in the site, but not this past week, so we're able to figure out how that happened. We have badge access, so we can make sure the right people are coming and going, and basically that CNL, the carrier neutral location, that equipment room, provides space for all these last mile providers to put equipment in racks and have access to this larger middle mile network. What you see here is we're not coming in to go cherry pick customers in the community. We're not serving residences. We're serving ISPs. We're making that service available to the ISPs. There's always a telco deal with this. So these are CNLs and Parachute and Silk, just as some nearby examples. They're fiber cement prefab buildings. They're fiber cement prefab buildings. You can see the dual air conditioners on the outside, generator up top. We didn't have natural gas to the Parachute ones, so that got propane unit for the generator. And they sit along the highway. Here we're off the highway, a couple of them off the highway. We have a camera on the outside of the one, and then we can put a tower next to it if you want, but generally they're fiber based. Continue. So this is kind of just a quick overview of the electronics that go in the CNL. So you've got your fiber connection coming in. The top set of gray boxes, these are basically prisms. They move the light in and out. These boxes, transponders, these are like flashlights. They send the light through the prism to the destination. The edge router is the most interesting box of the whole thing. And then that's what actually talks to the ISPs, makes the routing decisions. And doing that locally is kind of the really important part. That's cool. And then we're serving the wireline ISPs, the fixed wireless ISPs, the mobile providers. We're making the services available to these folks so they can improve their coverage. They can make those last mile investments. Key differentiator from EagleNet. EagleNet came into a town and said, we're going to go after the library, we're going to go after the school district, we're going to go after all the public institutions. Now we'll take those customers direct if they ask us, if they come and say, hey, we're not getting it done by our ISP, will you serve us? There's nothing on our website. There's nothing on our entire presentation that says we're coming here to cherry pick or try for revenue. Our goal is sustainability. It's not a for-profit venture. So anyways, that's kind of the customer side. Continue. How do you develop this crazy capacity on fiber? Well, that's the prisms. We take all the different colors, wavelengths of light, put it onto 2 strands of fiber, and we demultiplex or break it back out on the other side. And instead of needing really big heavy fiber cables, we can just lease 2 or 4 strands of fiber places where we can get. That's what we end up with for capacity, pretty significant numbers. Next slide. That's one. That's it. Okay, so anyways, that's kind of the overview, just to at least give you guys get you wet with what we're doing. Glad to answer any questions or let you guys continue.
I think what we have next is questions from our board or defense.
So when you go on the Grand Junction or then they'll do a plaque that goes into the St. Lumen's building at 800 Main.
Not even in Maine. So we're going into 1850 Pearl, which is the level 3 gateway building, just west of downtown. And then the fiber cable comes from Zayo. So that cable is actually being routed in the vault in front of 9, 10, 15th Street.
Right.
So in the future, we can add an ADM in and get into 9, 10, 15.
Right.
1850 Pearl is actually where most of the big iron, the national routing infrastructure is. 9, 10, 15 has most of the local interconnectivity. So being in 1850 Pearl serves us better because we're really trying to get us to the national networks. We'll still have access.
That's right up the I-70B
Business loop.
business loop down there in the valley. That,
I'm sorry.
there's some buildings down there, but is that right off of the I-70 business loop?
Oh, for
Trans Junction?
Oh, in Junction. Oh, so,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was Denver. So in Junction, there's 2 facilities. There's the Merrill Lynch building, which is the Tri-State Suite.
Right.
And that's kind of the backfill co-location building for Grand Junction. That's basically out of capacity. So they don't have any more rack space to lease. So what we did is work with the city of Grand Junction to be able to build a CNL, an expanded equipment room in a city building that right next door, a block away.
Okay.
And then we built a conduit between the 2.
Right.
And we put fiber in the conduit. So ISPs can, if they're in Merrill, they can get over to the CNL. And then the CNL has a lateral that goes back up to the pipe. So we just wanted to expand the available space for co-location in Grand Junction. There's a national project, Connected Nation, that's proposing a data center in Grand Junction, but it's not funded yet. We just wanted to get the network connectivity. But there's basically 5 racks in there, and there's an entire room, like a 15 by 15 room, where we could put another, say, 8 racks or something in, or cabinets. So yeah, always up for feedback if there's things we can add or change, or if you guys know the industry, we're all ears.
So you're trying to work with these bigger industries, and I'm concerned about the little guys. Mark brought internet to our valley years ago, and he has a lot invested here. And if he has to pay your prices, $2,900 a month, he's gonna have to double our pricing. We might as well go to Sterling at that point.
So all of the services we offer, the pricing, we work with a consultant to try to find pricing that would work and keep us sustainable. Because if we do it for a year or 2 and then financially can't make it, it doesn't do anybody any good. The services are not mandatory, they're elective. So you can always build a fiber cable, build a wireless link, lease from the telephone company. This is just another competitive, like additional service. We're not trying to bill anybody for money. We're just trying to make sure that we can pay our insurance, our management, our upstream costs. This is a incredibly top-heavy network. I mean, the operational costs on this are really quite great. So making sure that those costs are covered so we can continue serving communities. Because the last thing you want to do is have a false start, kind of like you did, where they come in, make a bunch of promises, and this thing vanishes. I want it to be sustainable. So
I think one important point of clarification, if that's okay, when Corey talked about reaching those larger providers, that wasn't, we're not selling to those providers, that's not our goal. Goal is to work with the ISPs in our community, and that's how we've managed our network for the last 7 years. That's to be able to help the smaller providers reach those larger services. That when we started our network, what we found was the small providers in our area were not able to get enough service into the region to serve the community's cost effectively. So our goal is not to sell to large providers. We don't have any large providers on our billing list. It is our small local ISPs that we're working.
tier 2 and tier 3 ISPs. Tier 2 are typically mid-market, multi-site ISPs, and tier 3 are individual community ISPs like what you have here. The whole thing is designed to support these guys. And if they want to use it, it's here for them. If they don't want to, it's a choice. We're just building infrastructure and trying to offer services. So what I can't do is offer a subsidy from 6 counties, 6 governments on the western side of Colorado to other counties. So I can't cross-subsidize like from region 10 to some other county in this area or Durango or something. we have to make sure that our rates support our spend. So that's the whole structure there. So if the rates don't work for an ISP in the area of a certain scale, maybe as they grow and gain more footprint and reach more subscribers, then the revenue is sufficient to access the services. I've talked to Mark, you know, and the guys I all Clear Metrics works with us very actively. So we're all in active conversation. I'd love to offer everything for 10 cents on the dollar. That's just not sustainable. It's not what we can do. Because then it comes back to our governments saying, hey, why are you even doing work in Mason County? And we're saying, well, we're a support DOLA, trying to be a good neighbor, trying to make this thing work.
Was that part of the original feasibility study to contact the current ISPs and say, you know, what do you need, or what do we need to build for this to work for you so you can use our facilities?
To be frank, there wasn't a feasibility study done. We were asked by the towns and the counties in northwestern Colorado and Mesa and Garfield to help support them with the infrastructure we were already building for our towns. So we've done our best to work with your town staff and with the ISPs. We've held discussions on this for a long time and get as much feedback and that we can. But no, we didn't go out. We didn't have a staff of 20 people in 2 years to plan. I mean, the guys that tried that failed are no longer around. I basically just used my experience and leverage what had already been developed for several years at Region 10 to try to support you guys. And I know some places will come up short and maybe miss the mark even, and other places it's just been ball over the fence. In our area, we've got a lot of small ISPs that are using our services, either using our lit services or upstream services. We've got some of our clients who have many others. And our co-location sites, as soon as we announce these co-location sites, I mean, the guys just jump on us. I mean, that's fine. Perfect example. I mean, you guys all know the story. We don't even have the buildings built and turned up. Their Netflix is already beating down the door, you know, trying to put it and selling. These guys are all very aggressive about moving forward and getting into the buildings and using services. Our biggest challenge is just we're a small shop trying to do a big thing.
How many providers can you provide for 40 hours?
So I've got in my town, I've got a 40-foot tower next to a CNL. We've got, I think there's 3 providers on there right now. The footprint of the equipment, it's got for the radio side, it's gotten smaller and smaller over the years. And typically the guys that are on the tower in Crescent View, they're not distributing to homes from that tower. They're using that tower to launch up to a ridge line that has a good vantage point to see a bunch of homes. So like, it's not like we're providing the final towers to distribute the service. It's usually a launching point to 3, 4, 5 different locations. And from those distant locations, those ISPs are providing access to homes. So, I mean, the equipment is, the equipment is anywhere from, 8 inches tall up to, a few feet. To say if you saw a dish beyond 3 feet, you're probably going beyond the valley sight line. If you get into a 4, 5, 6 foot dish, that kind of thing, the wind loading small 40-foot towers is designed for that. It's designed for the small stuff. If somebody needs that kind of infrastructure to go 50 miles, those great distances, then maybe the town considers providing some land and building allowing the provider to build a larger facility. But this is more limited scope. Now, as part of the upstream capacity, the backhaul getting onto the network and feeding those last mile networks, got more capacity you can imagine. We've been able to buy the equipment, get access to the fiber, do all this interesting stuff to bring capacity to you. The tower itself is just designed for site. We've only done a couple towers, so this was really second one. Yes, we did Crescent View and got Visionary, the town, and I think one other around there. And then this one, there was a lot of interest from the wireless because you guys have so much distance between homes.
Who's your board of directors?
So Region 10 is a council of governments, so very similar to AGC. And so we are a council of governments in an economic development district. So the elected officials our board is made up of our 6 counties and 16 municipalities. and they each appoint a member to serve on our board. So that's, our board is actually our governments, that we are a government member organization, much like agency. We operate a little differently than agency. We don't focus on lobbying, that's not our goal. We are more of a service organization. And so we provide a number of services, including senior services. We host the area agency on aging in our organization, we host the SBPC, we host the business loan fund. So we do, we are the economic development district. So we do a lot of service work in our community. The broadband project was actually born out of our economic development planning. And in our region, as you all know, we are a full region. As our coal mines started closing down, we were trying to figure out how we could serve our communities and grow our businesses. And broadband was identified as the #1 economic barrier in our community, and that's one CERT project.
Will it be up to the ISPs to say that fiber in this location, if out to the towers?
It will
or
be,
Cell towers?
it'll be up to the ISPs to build the last mile fiber. We don't do last mile. We work with the state, or most of our projects are state funded. We have a little bit of federal funding in there. And with that, we're strictly a middle mile provider.
Get the service to that CNL. From there, it's really up to the ISPs. And actually, there's quite a bit of private equity more recently and state funding and federal funding coming through to help those ISPs with the last mile piece. But there's not as much money for the middle mile. So that's why the state has stepped up and actually helped with the middle mile piece. If you want to go from the center of town out to the neighborhood, there's all these grant programs. Really, there's a lot of private equity that's come online in the last 2-3 years. That's getting a lot done. But on the middle mile piece, building along these highways and getting the equipment, putting this stuff together, it's 5% of the last mile. There's very little grant money available.
That's what we heard from our ISPs, that's where the need was, it's in the middle mile.
So with the incumbents, it gives them the opportunity to make the services work better, faster, potentially cheaper. If there's gaps that the incumbents aren't filling in, it gives the opportunity to have other players enter the market as well. It's kind of a mix. And it really, at the end of the day, it seems to be driven by the customer demand. I mean, in Montrose, when DMEA got into Elevate, it was a very aggressive push from the ratepayers, from the members of the DMEA group that came forward and tell a story. It was like pitchforks and torches saying, either we're going to get into this and help our economy, or we're going to remove you and put someone in who's favorable to. It's a pretty aggressive effort. Not every community. Where I live in Gunnison County, the electrical company doesn't want to become an ISP. They're very open to helping on the middle mile, and they've really done that, but they're not trying to compete. That's not their goal.
In either.
Yeah.
How much rack space, or how many ISPs do you think you can accommodate in the CNL, the rack space?
Sure. Can you go back to this drawing? Yeah, so the idea is to take these last mile racks, and they're 8 foot tall. There's 42 rack units, or a rack unit is 1.75 inches, and the equipment is usually sized in increments of 1.75. So with 42, we lease those racks in half rack increments. So if you want that whole cabinet, we'll either lease you the whole cabinet, or we'll lease you a top half or a bottom half. So if the ISPs in your community only needed half racks, we could serve 6 separate ISPs. If one ISP comes in and says, I want multiple racks, well, we've done this a few times where we have to push back and say, you can't have them all. We're going to at least preserve one for another competing entity, so we have diversity in the group. So if someone want more, if we exhaust this space, we could. You could simply put another facility right next to each other, and but on a side by side, put a door between them, and have another, 5, 6, 8 feet racks.
So there's growth potential there if necessary.
It's just infrastructure. So it's not free. You
Right.
gotta build another building. But,
We have seen that in one of our communities in our region, where we're working with the town to expand their CNM.
So for now, we have the potential for up to 6.
up to 6, I mean, but an ISP or 2 are typically gonna want 1 rack.
Yeah.
Some of the more aggressive fiber to the home ISPs will want multiple racks. But we try to help them be efficient in their use, because it's kind of premium space, you know. To have this kind of data center space in a rural area is completely new. And this is very new and different. We're not pricing it at metro prices, we're trying to lower the barrier of entry for these guys to come in. The two things or expand either way, but the whole idea is that if we give them a place to put the equipment, we give them the services that they can use, you've lowered the barrier for any of the ISPs to grow. And to access that last amount of funding and get further into the community. So yeah, that half rack increments a full rack, and if we run out, go back to the well and see if we can build it next to it.
Melanie, do you know approximately how many ISPs might be interested in this area?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, we have one. I mean, there's 4 people. Okay. There's 4 to 9. So there's potential right there, 4 potential right there.
I guarantee every one of these guys behind me is looking at the unserved and underserved maps and saying, people who have poor service or not getting any service at all, how do we use our private capital to access federal dollars to complete that equation? That's the calculation everybody's doing on the back of their napkin. So we're just trying to be an enabler. We're not picking or choosing anything.
So you're building for environmental control, you have staff to go around, change the filters, do the routines.
Yeah.
On those buildings.
So initially, we got to walk before we run it.
Right.
Again, we are a small shop.
I understand.
So we put 2 mini splits in each. So those will drain to the outside for condensate. Filters should be changed annually. We can put the generators in service contracts. What I'd really like to do is be able to automate some of this, to make sure that we've got instrumentation that looks at intervals of the generator starts, fluctuations in temperature in the building, and then door lock, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, all those, you can create basically a data center at least, but there's costs associated with it, and it's both a labor cost and equipment cost. Sure. So, you know, we partner for that, we contract for that. But at the end of the day, we own the success of that once we contract with you to manage with this. We should be sleeping into your long hand place. But really keeping them dust free and not storing equipment in them. We don't want the ISPs putting equipment on the walls. We want them located in the racks only. We don't charge cross connect fees between cabinets like you'd see in the data center downtown. Again, we're trying to lower costs for these guys, not increase costs. And we do let them bring cables in the building without having an entrance facility fee like a telephone. You know, so if you're going to build fiber to some towers, fiber to the home throughout the community, and you want to bring a cable in and terminate it in a patch panel in your rack, we have no protest for that. We want you to use the facility. How do you do that? Or physically pull the cable in through a conduit, have a panel over outside. Yeah, and then pull it in through the conduit and or vault, bring it up along the ceiling, along the ladder racks to your cabinet. Right. And then break open the fan cables and place it in that fiber tray, and then close up the fiber tray, and you have access to your plan to put vaults running on the outside. A vault. Yeah. So you have access through a vault. I mean, I'd love to have redundancies and everything. I'd like to have 2 laterals out of here too, but there's just limits to it. So what other questions from the board? And then we'll
It's exciting. It is exciting. I think, you know, we have seen this, sorry, question. I will say in our region with our coal mines closing, you know, we have seen our median income remain stable, which we were really shocked by. You know, it's really the same, not to say we didn't have lots of impact from the mine closures and the power plant, but we have seen the impact of our project in communities like yours that have the foresight to think about broadband, you know, as an infrastructure need, as important as your roads, as important as your other facilities that you offer in our community, I think our communities in our region definitely have seen that reward. So kudos to all of you for thinking about our community and being visionary and moving forward with this project. But I think this is the others from our backbone
I was gonna say,
that we've been able to reach, and so it's been really amazing to see what your community's done.
one thing I really didn't have on, they're probably, sorry, is that most of the communities are short laterals off of I-70, are relatively short laterals off the Highway 160 corridor. And the fact that you guys were able to find the funding, manage the project, and build 19 miles of fiber into it.
21.
The private industry would have been able to do this profitably alone. It could have been done. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. But there is a market failure where you can't support that type of infrastructure investment with a very light population and great distances. And time got this thing done. So let's figure out how to use it and make it valuable for you guys. That's the whole, it's the point of us.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, I could be open to the public questions and what you have for.
Greetings, everybody. I'm Tyler. I work for Optimus Communications, one of the potentials for coming on with Region 10. I have several questions. First and foremost, does the board know the population of the town of Colby? Does the board know? Okay. As of 2022, according to the United States Census Bureau, 368 residents in the town of Colburn. Of that, there's approximately 164 houses that could potentially be served within the town of Colburn. Again, all Census Bureau data. I want just to look you in the face, and I want to ask, can you tell us, each one of us that's in here, are we all being offered the same price to be able to compete in that scene?
Stand up and answer your question. So we have the same base rates. So we work with a consultant, to come up with what's, you know, feasible rates that keep us whole and in our market competitive. So if I have a multi-tier or a multi-market provider, I've got to do some discounting based on the fact that they're buying multiple markets. So on an individual case basis, yeah, we will absolutely apply some discounting to incentivize it. If you want to come in and serve your revenue, and I've got a network available there, we'll figure out something to help bring you in and make that kind of thing. As far as the base rates, yeah, it's the same degree we're trying to do it, and it's imperfect. We're trying to come up with stuff that works. If we build this thing and nobody uses it, I mean, have we been wasted? I mean,
And that was gonna be my next question.
but we can't do it, you know, under the cost.
Certainly. And I don't really expect anything to be done under cost. Obviously, we've spent all of our tax money in order to get this here in the first place. However, if there is like larger competitors, then that's going to be more of a stunt to the small business, right? So those who have multiple markets that they can service, and we just said that they're going to get discounts compared to maybe somebody who's only serving here. So even if we're taking 100% take rate, unrealistic, right? 168 houses throughout the entire area. As I'm just gonna say, trustee Price, who had said 2,900 is what we came up with that last meeting. And that was without minimum, or was that with you?
Well,
That was their transport.
Layer 2 transport.
yeah, no internet.
Without internet. That's just the ability to get here. Right.
And that's how they would like to.
So, I'm I'm going to use for calculating, don't mind me. And it was 147 households at that 2,900 devices. That is adding for 100% take rate, an additional $20 to each and every person we're connected, right? So that doesn't go into man hours, all of the additional costs in order to get them connected, all of the technology that goes into it.
Already been very well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the point that I want to make is here within the town of Broadband, the average median income is $47,000 a year. So that's both incomes, right? So what is a realistic number for us to expect our clients or customers to be able to pay in order to make sure that we can provide this wonderful service? So that way it's not just a race.
So I definitely want to take some feedback from you guys. And I hear that the prices are not meeting your needs. And certainly if you only consider the town, the people you're going to serve, you can't do that with the 10 gig pipe. You wouldn't need a 10 gig pipe,
Absolutely.
right? That certainly would be excessive for 150 to want to subscribe for 150 or for the guys. So you're pulling a locomotive bicycle at that point. So you have to have a backhaul cost. And really, what's the cost of your alternative?
Build it ourselves.
Well, yeah, and if you amortize that over a period of time, there's a real both capital and operating costs to that. So we're not a man. We're just, this is something you can choose to use. It's something you could stand at the second or third or fourth microwave out of the valley to different points. You go back into 10 billion or something like that. Those are all options. However you choose to engineer your infrastructure is really for magic, right?
Sure.
This is one. This is one option for you, and the intent is to improve it. We don't have there's no profit in this for us. Really, we're outside of our territory, so just covering the costs that are open. And if we have to subsidize it, then we can make our decisions.
It's also one of the reasons we offer multiple levels of service, so, if you don't need 10 gig, you can buy 1 gig, then we could look at that instead. So there are multiple service levels to be able to accommodate. We understand that there are small communities. We have a lot of small communities in our region as well. And so we understand that there are smaller communities that would have less need. So it's not like, I'm not sure where the 2,900 came from, but it's not like that's the only price point in our entire pricing. So we are trying to work through that and find that balance between what works for communities and what.
What we caution you is that if you went from New York to New Jersey and someone had excess capacity, they're not using it, they're going to sell it for anything under market because any dollar is called. That is not a basis for pricing the millions of dollars of infrastructure that we're putting in place here in Colburn through and 70 and acquisition. So it's a little bit apples to oranges, but it's not entirely. Our cost basis is the true cost basis of operating what we've got. If I wanted a 10 gig circuit on a very high speed network that's just excessive, excess capacity is not being used. You might get that with pennies on a dollar. Like for Hurricane Electric that do this all the time. But there's also unique infrastructure like in the area that we're built into there because no one else could do it. Would Norway, these are all small communities in scale of children. The town centers are very little populated. Now the periphery makes it the valley. Right. And if you're just serving 147 people, probably wouldn't be in this.
And with 10 gigs, that's something that's the sort of a small community. I mean, really, right, exactly. So, which that is information for me. I was not aware that there was multiple levels. I was only informed that there was that 10 gig.
One gig's not enough, 10 gigs.
But there's two.
I am thinking.
Well, that's,
We're not marketing at this point. We're just having this little conversation as it's requested. We haven't even deployed the infrastructure. So really getting the credit right. It's kind of like playing.
Well, you were asking me, the 2,900 is that they be applied in for.
Okay,
So I could build another wireless league. At least with my Grand Mesa sites for that in 1 year. And actually, that'd be another question for you, it's my.
I don't really have anything else really, the purpose of this was make good with the public and what population wants to want the expectations were.
Thank
I appreciate your time, thank you.
well, so,
To go along with that, we just had some neighbors move up from Phoenix, Arizona, actually got some business out of her. And I didn't know that, you know, they had their T-Mobile hotspot, and she said there's no reason for her to change or do anything different. When we just replaced our AT&T phones, I guess they're coming up with the AirNet program. It's not available here yet, or even the Grand Junction. But it'll be at $45 a month, I guess.
yeah, I will say when Region 10 started our project, we really talked a lot about what that looks like. And so we did spend a year planning, before we did the project in Region 10. And we really talked a lot about affordability and what that would look like. And our goal is to get more broadband to communities. It's not, Region 10 is a nonprofit government organization. So, as Corey said, we're not trying to make profit on this. We haven't made any profit on this. So, you know, we're still trying to find that balance for our organization as well, not to take down senior services along with broadband, but we're trying to find that balance as well. But our goal is to get more broadband to communities. So if that works better for, you know, if that's what gets more broadband to people, we're supportive of it. We're not going to be out trying to sell our service over someone else's service. Matter of fact, we don't go out and try to sell our service.
Right.
We offer the service, and if ISPs feel like it's beneficial to them, if any groups feel like it's beneficial, we will talk to them and try to work with them to develop a plan that we feel like makes them best. If someone else comes in and can bring in a better service for a better price, we're all for that too, because our goal is for the community to have more broadband. So if it works better to do a wireless transmission, you know, over 4 or 5 hops, however that works for you, we're not gonna go out and say anything negative about it. We're not gonna consider that competition. We're gonna say, wow, that's awesome that we're bringing more capacity into our community. And that's really our approach. Yeah, come on. And so that's really our approach, is to get as much capacity into a community as we can. Our model is one model. We know it's not the best model maybe for everyone. We realize that it is a model and opportunity for your community to increase its goodness.
This is my turn. I've talked with Corey extensively over the years. And first thing we always talk about, probably repeatedly, is EagleNet. And I told him, you know, whatever happens, it can't be a failure like EagleNet. And I really resent, you know, the amount of money we spent. And that showed nothing for it. But a couple of providers got a lot of fiber for free, and it's for me, not here. Yeah. And the wireless networks. But the other thing is, you know, I'm gonna picture both sides of it. There's, you know, we're not, our market share are not increasing. The population here is not increasing. The people that come here, or people are diversified, either going with T-Mobile hotspots, AT&T hotspots, or Starlink. And you see quite a few Starlink antennas as you drive back and forth here in Junction, you get out from where it starts. So, the amount of potential has decreased. Now, one of the reasons, and Tyler's bringing this up, is why they were focusing on culvert, because this became a culvert project. It was not a Mesa County project. Otherwise, when I stepped in here 2 years ago, I said, well, when you start building this, let me do some lateral, you draw my fiber at the same time, last on the same time. And we can provide service to others. That has not happened. I don't know, you and I talked about having a breakout there at Beck, so I could pick up service. I don't know if that's happened.
Quite a bit of progress on. It's a fully funded project today, but it wasn't clear originally.
Well, the other thing is that, you know, where there is funding for anchor institutions. Like, what the hell's that to do with middle mile? Not a damn thing. But the other problem is, if there is one, and I've asked for, I'll point at you for that one. I've asked for the last 3 years, copies of plans, bids, everything. I've not gotten nothing yet. So, but if you're gonna actually try and build something, an anchor institution, why not? Instead of the failure you talked about the hospital in Montrose, but even that, why not put a cabinet outside the building on property line on a utility easement for somebody like me, yeah, their networks that come along and tap into it. You know, I'm people are out here complaining about the way the internet's running. And it's because I don't know what the hell's going on. I've got a packet built fiber system, the GPON system, but I don't know, okay, should I plan on picking up a fiber connection somewhere else? Off the hospital or the clinic or town hall? Or, you know, what's going on? So I got my life savings in the system here. So, and on the other hand, like I said, you know, I agree with you guys, it's gotta be cost. Well, you know, that you guys make it continue to run, but we can't afford, because this is now a Culver project, not a Mixed County project. I cannot justify $20 per household, and we're not gonna get all the households. If I got all the households, I could justify $20. But then I still pay for internet. And I'm paying, I could pay with less than what you guys want to charge me for transport, Indian transport and internet into 910 telecom. And I'm paying $225 a month for rack space, but I only got a quarterback. Yeah.
So Mark, I got 13 years ago, I tried to help get the funding for that from the state.
Mhm.
I thought they were gonna. And I spent 2 years prosecuting and trying to get them to do the right thing after that happened. So what I've tried to build in this plan is not being a threat to the providers, because that was really important to me. I was a provider at the time.
Mhm.
Okay, I had a private company with you guys at that, and I did not want those prosecutors coming to me. But what I've done is the only thing I can do here is help. Is we're a benevolent actor that can bring capacity, bring some co-location space, and make those available. That's really our limited mission. Beyond that, what you do in town, other locations, you know, the town has the ability to build fiber between community anchors. That's the case in all these towns throughout Western Colorado.
There are arrogant fiber people.
Yeah, you know,
So it's like, why do it?
well, look, goodness, my town, I work for the college. And the college worked with the city and they worked with the county. And since the college had the IT staff, we provided internet access to those couple entities, right?
Mhm.
And that was just effective, it's how it had to be, we didn't have another option. But as far as Region 10 mission here is, we're not here to displace you or compete with you or any of that.
No, I feel like you're trying to do the right thing. Not smart prices, it's a little too high.
We're not targeting any of the institutions. We did a project in Lake City recently. Lake City, you know, we built fiber between the community anchor institutions. We have some open access fiber that any of the providers can use. So they have a residual benefit in that case. But I would just maybe consider, we'll work on pricing with any of you guys. Either of you have we already requests, we've been through clear networks, any of it. We're trying to feel out and understand that it's possible to make sure that's above the water for us. But at the same time, just consider that the expectations around this are huge.
Right.
And we're trying to deliver something that you all can use. And that's really the best I can offer you. We're small,
Trying to go in population. Quite incredible. No, it's a small, I think.
big thing in Colorado. 50.
That's right, pick it smaller.
52 homes, 27 year-round residents, and no line of type peripheral lines. Yeah, that's one. Marble, that's another one. Marble, big property.
Robert's little small fairness or smaller.
My point is that we're all on the same list.
Right.
And we're all fighting the same forces.
Well, I've got a friend who's another
It's true,
ISP
low population, high.
and, you know, Delta Montes County. And, you know, he helped me to price, he high down there for him too. You know, if you're, then have more than one location. You know, that, it becomes expensive to try to do something like that. So, you know, my suggestion would have been, you know, to go with some lower price equipment on these outskirts. You know, I kind of send it to you from main equipment. But right here, you know, a microwave would be fine. Or a digital.
It's actually, DOLA has assisted in paying for the equipment. It's our ongoing operations.
Right. Well, and you need to get a grant for the equipment. It's an $80,000 due for $10,000 system. In 20 years, you have to replace it. So you have to budget in your replacement costs, because you're not gonna get a grant in 20 years or 10 years.
They would get that in the budget. Would you like to discuss the placement of fiber in public trenches?
You know, ultimately, I'm Dale Beck, Northwest Regional Manager for Department of Local Affairs. The program was intended to provide CNL ISP independent location in all the towns, which ISP come in and look into. Many or as few as felt the market was viable for them. When you look at communities, particularly like Oakland, nobody was going to come with the size of the population and run 21 miles. In fact, it's one going to happen. It's cost prohibitive.
Right.
It's really the same for a lot of the communities, even the Rifle, Newcastle, Sill, Parachuting back, most in the right order there. It's been prohibited. They're small communities. When we funded that middle mile of the CNL equipment, so that everybody could have a base starting place. Region 10 was our partner in doing that, as they were going to manage the CNLs and the agreements, and all the ISPs. We don't do that as the state. Who comes into your town, what basis they come into, what the pricing structure is intended to be competitive for anybody and everybody. And that's what.
I still think this area is good for. You know, last summer, we thought this would be done a year ago. Last summer, I had to build electrical out to my Grand Mesa tower site, $50,000 there. Plus one labor and make equipment and employee concern on that. That's, you know, so it's cost some, but also it might be another site. You know, you guys want to talk about redundancy, we could pull it back out, go wireless to get, you know, that will happen.
So when we look at the costs, and you know, anytime we're going to spend on something, especially on a new service, it's really like, where in my budget can it possibly? And if you amortize it over subscribers, you look at it, you're like, there's no way you can. But the bottom line is, private industry has not reached these remote and rural areas. If it was the case, you would have already built this over your neighbor or your peer. I built everything out here out of my own pocket.
But we, you know, we got a grant out here to help build some of them.
What I'm saying is, fiber infrastructure in the area has not been delivered by.
I just built from on that app. In fact, we actually had a house in Salt Creek, it's on the front. So it's really 600 million.
What I'm saying is,
I know what you're saying. You're saying that fiber, that's a, well, it's okay. That's how. I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
I'm saying that the middle mile infrastructure has not been delivered by any private industries. They haven't built into here, CenturyLink hasn't built into here, you haven't built into here, the next guy hasn't built into here. What happened with the town took the initiative to try to come up with a way, to provide, and the funding came from DOLA, to provide some infrastructure where the incumbents just can't take it start. So you don't have to use the infrastructure. It gets on. Well, if you do, we have to have a cost associated to it. And if you don't, okay, you can build it. That's all.
Or for $3 million, they could build one hell of a wireless system. And it would have done, you know.
Or on top of it, you could build another fiber.
Yeah, unfortunately, before DOLA, and it was the PUC, that's when I moved up here 34 years ago, we tried. Or I tried working with engineering, we still have the PUC to work with. If every property owner coming up the canyon would have just put in for a telephone line, and because the PUC funded a lot of that with US West, they could have canceled their order once it was built, but we would have had to buy 2 grand fiber, clear the base set, and then have the fiber coming over. And that was, like I say, 34 years ago, and then when UR came up with the water, I tried to work with them to same thing, let's at least get a conduit in there, so there's some, wouldn't be all this expense that we have now. And, it's just kind of a sad thing that it's taken 34 years. Maybe at least that, I'd really like to see it be successful and happen.
These guys pull this, I mean, honestly, guys, these guys, even if the process was perfect. Melanie and Carl have pulled off one heck of a coup, building an infrastructure. From that highway all the way down. Wow.
That's right.
That's something that you would expect a large, or at least a tier 2 or greater ISP. Do that as staff in a small municipality with the support of the county and DOLA and local dollars. You got something that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah.
We'll work out how to get access and how to use it. We're not trying to draw hard lines, but we got to make sure the Region 10 is sustainable in their efforts outside of their home area. And that you guys benefit from. We have nothing to take away from this. The best thing we can do is say, hey, it's responsible to step back. But I want to help. And that's really the goal.
And I really understand part of the basis for why DOLA wanted this open network, open CNL, anybody can come in, is that we're concerned about your community and the citizens. So there were instances where one ISP wanted to come in and do everything, and we're like, no. We will not support the monopoly. That's not right. It's like, no. Yeah, so it's very important to have the open CNLs. We're proud that it's here. And now for those, I mean, there's obviously interest, for ISPs here. So if somebody's been search your channel, multiple ISPs may search your channel through different means. And whatever they can do economically from a business perspective is going to work. At the end of the day, your citizens, your community is going to better off.
Well, my company's the fiber provider here in this town. We were consulted about this at all. And I don't feel like what has been built is what I need. I do appreciate it's come. And like I said, I'm not used to it. I think I'm concerned with friend doing yeah, he's trying to help. And I think he's doing, the job. It's, I don't appreciate the way it's built. I don't appreciate that there's, an aerial line when we could have built it. And we would have put a splitter down, or put a cabinet at the end. But start aerial and another one maybe along the way. So now I'm actually crossing fiber that's already there.
One of the parameters was we would not let an ISP be part of the construction project. That gave unfair advantage to one ISP over other ISPs. So we would not do. We had one near miss.
One inspector told me that like 3 years ago.
Where we worked out some of the details in one near miss, but we cannot, as a state, pick and choose winners or favor one business.
Well, you got this guy with 34 years.
Well, been around it, and actually this project that is being done now, my wife and I brought to the town over before this set up. It was, almost 20 years ago. The idea, the grants, because at the time our government had the cable TV system, and it was a way to upgrade that and get those grants and whatnot. But unfortunately, kids grow up, they go across the country, and we get too old, can't do it anymore. So
6 years ago, I got
here.
I got power farm, the town of Colburn, clinic, the school. There was like 8 or 9 of us all together to try and figure out how to do this project. And the only thing we could come up with was, maybe somewhere along the way we could have gone 75%, I would have 25%. Which $3 million, 25%, it's still kind of hard to so I've been involved with this a long time. And that's why Outlast is in, not being involved. Because I did this, he did this, apparently, I didn't know you did that.
Well, we had just done the homework and had everything located, talked to the Forest Service going across Whitewater, you know, National Forest, the interstate and all that, but, and we brought it to the board at the time, it was a completely different board, old school, but they felt, and actually what we wanted to do at the time was donate the system or the plant to the town so that they could have access to more money and more grants. At the time, and that's why they voted it down, because they didn't want to compete with private enterprise. And they saw it differently, so, and that's fine, you know, hindsight's 20. Like I said, I'm also kind of across that. Yeah.
And I think, I think that just speaks to your ongoing vision and the opportunity that you all have had to get this project done, that you've worked on for a long time.
Sure.
I think our takeaway that we want the private providers to have is, we would like to work with you, and if this project works well for you, we'd love to have these conversations one-on-one. I don't think we're gonna be able to resolve pricing in a public meeting.
No, that's okay.
But, we're trying to keep it fair, and we would just, invite anyone that wants to work with us on this project to do that. If you have other things you would like to do, and you would like any support we could provide, we're willing to do that as well, because like I said, our goal was really to get as much capacity into a community as we can. So if you have other ideas for projects, we'd be happy to talk about that. We've worked, with providers in the communities. If it works, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But we're always happy to have those conversations with our I think we consider them our biggest partners. Well, the communities that say first, and the private providers are biggest.
I thought this was supposed to be a public kind of partnership. Why is that not private?
The final mile is private, the middle mile is public.
It's all, I know we worked with, we worked with all these different, I think exclusively municipalities and county governments. And to build the middle line infrastructure. And then we offered it to the private industry for the last mile. We can't have a private entity as a partner in the middle mile piece. That there's that would
Great, sister, like I said,
in our model,
you guys could ask what the hell we need.
Mr. Mayor, this project has been built and he's upset. I would like to hear from the other ISPs.
Yeah, we can't go back for, just like I said.
Yeah, I agree.
4 years. Anyway,
I just want to know what we can do going forward. I want to know if I can still ever hook up in the back.
you guys putting your system in there?
we just got that funded, and it's in construction right now, so it'll be the same thing. We'll have a co-location facility at CNO. Up to the highway, I think was one of the things you would have.
Wrong side of the highway, south side of the highway.
Well, I think what's important to know is these communities are following a model that we developed and work Region 10.
Right.
So that's kind of all. Region 10 is not, the communities are determining how and where to build their fiber, where the diversity come, and how to make that work. But that's not what we're not doing that portion. So, I don't think we can speak to that portion of the project.
Why don't you
We're not determining the vet is determining where to put the scan out.
Use local.
So it's not gonna do, it's only gonna do for people right in the county, just like this one's, it's focusing on the county instead of. This is not the logical place to put it up for a game park. That's one reason I keep talking about, these guys keep talking to me about this more. But what do we wanna do going forward? Like I said, I'd be interested in talking to you guys about how to have some redundancy with wireless. When can we expect everything to be done, we can start taking stuff in rack.
So we are trying to get the facilities built right now.
Mhm.
I've got 18 or 19 separate facilities that are in development right now. And you want to meet the staff? He's sitting right here. I know support staff held this whole thing together as my executive director. So we've had, every time we've announced this, the demand has been kind of overwhelming. Andy, how many times have you called saying, We don't have to do it, but we have to months, it's gonna be 2 months. Merry Christmas, by the way.
Yeah.
So the good thing is a lot of demand, because you guys wanna get services out to your community. The downside is that. I don't think 50 people in an office and all these consultants and all the trinketry around me. You got one guy with goodwill and muscle and try to.
And we all, like, ISPs know how it feels to have our customers have a critical phone number. So it's like you can't get anything done, so, you know, I've been doing the same thing with you, if I call you, you call me back like 2-3 days later. Yep.
I return your call real glad.
Yeah,
They do, never not had a call answered. Right, may not be as quick as I would like to, because
and I've never had you about it, because I know what's going on.
So the answer to that question is we're moving as fast as we can, and rather than give their deadline, maybe we can talk about what we've done so far. So
been incredible. So
where we are in the process, yeah.
it's been incredibly challenging, to be frank, is because I want to deliver a really good network that I know the state needs. And I gotta do cabling first, I gotta do all the physical plant, the outside plant done. Then I've got to stage and deploy all the optical. Then I've got to do the most interesting part for me is the routing piece with all that. Along the way, build, about 15 or 16 new co-location facilities. So I had tried for a year to say, we're targeting this date for this time frame for this. And my latest target is November 2022. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to scale. We're the dog that comes with us. We're getting dragged on the road. And it's all for good reasons, but the scale is grander than we ever intended. We just wanted to get to 10 people at the time. And now we've created something that we. So I'm not trying to duck your question, but I'll give you an in-service date would mean that I could like magically finish agreements, entitlements, contracts, staging vendor does everything properly at which time. Like there is a window of time. We've made substantial progress. We've gone through, I think it's 92 separate agreements. We've got 4 left that we're working. Full location down in Denver, right? It's an agreement with Garfield County. There's one of the springs. So we had see that built across the highway for us, a small miracle that moved this forward. We've acquired all the equipment. We literally have the equipment sitting in the staging method. I've gone through the draft of the staging scripts for the optical equipment. We've got to get it through that process and shipped out and then installed. The routing equipment is sitting in Montrose. I'm going through agreements right now with the Diesel Lab. We can put that equipment up to the large data center in Boulder, where NOAA is, and actually do the staging with 4 large live internet services sitting right there at AgDog and our UConn. University Corporation for Atmospheric Research. They operate the entire facilities both. And so instead of just going into the CNL in Grand Junction, it's actually going to go into a location that has hearing available, content hearing available, and the advanced education methods available. So like, honestly, all these things impact schedule. And if you create a Gantt chart, this thing will look like speed. But we've been able to move the cabling piece forward. We got through the CDOT piece, we got the ZAO agreements in place. City of Grand Junction built their fiber, we got fiber built. They're working with us for it's very difficult previously. We got through that, finishing up the piece in down in Denver. We have a whole other leg to this, which is our introduction to Durham, including what? Our own territory. They were chartered with survey that they own region 10 for those governments. So it's it would make a little bit.
We have a lot of agreements that are not all delivered, or years to wait for a few products to be built, all the equipment's ordered, mostly paid for. So we're gonna do some of that, and it's in staging, and so just the end date just depends on when we can get all the rest of that completed.
2 weeks ago, we had one of our techs drop our Tyco, the black tube, and the multi-port terminal shattered everything in it. We're still out.
You'll understand.
So easy to get.
We have delays that we did not anticipate.
45 communities at the end of the day that I have line of sight to. So,
And then you can manage and flex and do stuff.
so I think you wanted to the other ISPs.
Yeah.
They're getting the bags of.
Yeah, I've been trying to chime in, but I didn't want to interrupt, so I apologize.
I kind of hear it, and from the beginning questions all the way through. So let's say it's not feasible from a cost perspective for our ISPs today. The equipment's gonna be built. And the statements are kind of around, you can use it if you want to, but it's gotta be there. Is there kind of an attraction to this that somebody else might come in if it's not being used? And overrun some of the local ISPs. We have priority on our local last mile people, to protect them from anybody who has a big pocket. And then for the service when it's available.
I don't understand what you mean by priority. Are you saying, are you getting different pricing? Are you saying, there's no, I mean, it's open, so I don't really understand. We're not prioritizing one ISP. I don't really understand what you're talking about. What I mean.
I'll restate it. It could be pricing, it could be discount, it could be equipment that's not being used, that's gonna be discounted later. But what I'm saying is, if the equipment's there and our local people can't afford it, is it gonna attract somebody with more money, even if it is at the same price, to come in and put them on business?
Our, you know, if you only have a limited number of houses, then, you know, any ISP is only gonna be able to serve a certain number of houses at a certain take rate. So there's no advantage to one over the other. And so we're working on our pricing. I mean, we shared with Mark some of our preliminary pricing. We're at boards that we're still working on it. And trying to kind of find that right balance. So I don't, you know, there's not priority list. I mean, there's the amount of homes that can be served.
Just saying, trying to protect our local.
So I think I hear what you're saying, which is you have an incumbent provider, that's made investments, and it's separate, to be honest. Is there a policy or a pricing schedule or something to create a preferences? And the short answer to that is no, because we want to create a new playing field. Now, does that mean the big guys gonna fly in from some major city and overbuild over in Colorado tomorrow?
Yeah.
They haven't done it in 20 years. And I would, you know, encourage the youth, if somebody wanted to come and cover the home to every one of our homes, they came in here. I think our local ISP would look at it and say, all right, this is not good, right? That's a huge threat. Has that company come in and said, we're gonna overbuild everything out of time?
Like you're upgrading the service, providing them a vehicle to do it. They're not gonna spend the money, like I said, it's expensive. It's not cost effective for them because it is a smaller clientele. But if the infrastructure is a lot better for them, then they most certainly could reduce the legacy.
I would say what we have seen in our community, and we've been serving our 14 communities for about 6-7 years. If the local provider, you know, is there, they're part of the community, they provide good service, they provide good customer service. I would say they usually have an advantage. They have the infrastructure already there. They have the relationships there. And that's not like picking or choosing, that's the community. Provider. So I think, you know, we do see that our local providers, if you're in our local communities already, you know, we've seen that they haven't. So, you know, I think that's fair. That's the community picking those priorities, not Region 10. We're funding the state money. We have to follow those guidelines.
And I think what they're trying to say is, if a new provider was to come in here, even a larger one, they're still gonna have to build the last mile infrastructure. For to handle their customers, or their customers, or buy out one of the existing ISPs.
Responsibility is we're just providing capacity for 15 months of location space. After that, the free market forces, including Candyman, is going to do its thing. If Google Fiber decides they want to come in here and fully subsidize the program and make this a traditional model for the country, that take the call, but I haven't heard it yet. But I mean, as an incumbent, if you're participating in this market, you should know the people, you should know the community. be priced appropriately, have it build your infrastructure, you can have a service and support advantage. I'm not here to engineer your last mile market, I'm just here to make the middleman piece. That's what we have been asked to do initially. Beyond that, hopefully you guys can, you know, work through those issues. But that's beyond what I can offer. Fair. But we don't have any preferential policy. We have a non-discriminatory. We have universal rights. We're trying to do things that be fair.
Thank you.
I mean, what would be a little difference, like you talked about, you know, there's a few points here, a few percentage points there, yeah, and some very people. So order of magnitude. Yeah, sorry. I'm not huge.
We have room for those as well.
Is there gonna be something between the two schools since they're, you know, the same school district? I know there's been, like, in the past, this is old school, but T1s between,
We're not even the school district at all. We're not the target school district. So
no, I don't mean targeting them, like as far as the, you know, like coming in to the town hall here where the ISPs can then connect and go out from here.
So this board has approved
Right,
fiber to the Plateau Valley campus, the job board because the hospital. That has not been built yet.
right,
But that is, and then it will run back to the CNL, so then it can go
yeah,
back to those anchor institutions. So there's not a connection directly between, say, the job corps and the school, but they'll both be on a spoke up to me. And then in terms of contracts and contracting service, that would be the school district's discretion.
this was a little bit different as to what Corey was talking about. I meant like, between the two schools having their own, you know, the computer labs and that type of thing instead of, them having to come to ISP or whatever they come to. Communicate between those two buildings.
No, no, we don't do that. We don't do that.
Well, I know that we agreed.
we're just trying to get it to the CNL, and the rest of it is really local decisions.
Right, no, that's trust and appreciate all the effort you. Time you put into it.
So the fiber is going to be anchor institutions will benefit whoever the ISP is that gets that contract.
Yeah, I
It's just that
understand.
they don't have to buy it
I understand.
or do that.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions from our providers?
Or comments?
Well, Doug didn't be down here to talk, wanted us to just hear what you guys have to say, hear where, you know, the progress of Mark is a local provider, where he is, where his intentions are. If we did decide to come down here, can we assist, can we help in any way? We're always, interested in, you know, what we intend to do for the law. Doug's got a lot of we're from way down at Bayfield and Cortez all the way up to the, so we've got a lot of projects that he typically likes to focus on highly densely populated areas where elevate's not going. Whether it's a small upscale community like Lock Hill, or like you mentioned earlier, we're going out to Newport now, Norwood, and we're hitting these places, these small communities just like this that nobody's thought of doing with assistance on it wherever we can get it. So we like to work with the little guys. We used to be the little guys. We're not anymore. We were 15 years ago. Doug was working out of his garage. Now, I guess we're about as big of IP as there is on the western slope right now. So it's great. Just gathering information. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks for
Appreciate it. Anything from
I'd like to just say, guys, thank you so much for all the hard work in this together. Keep going, hurry up. You guys have really put in the ton of work. It's almost there. I can taste it.
When I'm trying to hire it, completely fun to learn. It'll move it. We all gotta.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, I'm going to use a lot.
And I appreciate all assistance from the state. I mean,
Yeah,
the BUC is definitely not what it used to be, just like everything else, law enforcement.
we're so appreciative of DOLA. I always want to say that when we're in the room with them, for having the vision to help our communities implement this middle high. It would not have happened. Or we figured in our area, and we've invested, I think DOLA invested $50 million into these projects across the state. It's incredible. We are grateful.
And the 3 years I've been with this project, it invested all this, so long.
Thank you very much.
I'm gonna ring a bell a little bit. Not in a good way. So, Mike Scarpiti, I'm with the Pathfinder from Pathfinder Broadband. We're based out of Glenwood Springs, Colorado. We had dealt with these same problems there, very much like everybody else in this room, and related to middle mile, constraint. Just not really having any access to anything that wasn't CenturyLink, Comcast, some other privately funded option to deliver bandwidth to us to then be the last mile provider, the ISP to service very small communities much like this. What happened, several years ago was another initiative called SOAR. And if you are familiar with SOAR, that was another collaborative initiative with multiple government entities that brought a fiber path that was not owned by an individual provider down the I-70 corridor all the way out to Rifle, up and around the entire loop all the way back. So it's a very nice, diverse loop that all of a sudden offered significantly discounted prices for bandwidth. The bandwidth pricing that Corey is using is much in line with what we were seeing coming from Thor. So that pricing is nearly half of what we were being charged by other incumbent providers. So some of the concerns that I heard voiced about how much that's going to cost out here for bandwidth capacity is actually significantly better than what I could get from most any other avenue short of as one to building his own wireless, networks and trunks and everything like that, which is something that we had done initially as well, because of the same issues that you guys run into out here. Just cost the bandwidth insane, how we get to these bandwidth options, they were very limited and no resiliency. So those things were huge for us. We also ran into situations where, much like here was talking about, well, hey, what if we have these very regional locations show up, and then all of a sudden we threaten the incumbent provider, right, who are permanent services, who are better than the community, all those things. That's kind of something we were concerned about as well, honestly, about it. But what we found was kind of the same things that you guys are seeing here. Nobody spent the time to come out and do this before. A lot of times now, they're not really interested in coming out here and doing it as part of that as well. What we're finding is that the bigger players want the bigger, larger numbers to go with what they're coming after, right? So even if you offer them something that is a lower cost transport, well, most of the time they want their own transfer anyway. They don't want to use a third party. They don't want to interact with other people that have to deliver their services. That's a risk in their business model. So they don't do that. So we haven't seen anything like that occurring over in since 5 years ago when both came online. I think by the contrary, we've still
basically how Pathfinder originated was a bid to build 10 miles of fiber of a very, very wealthy area in Aspen that they tried for 30 years to do, no one would do it. So you still see those things occurring even now, even with these new infrastructures going into place. And I think what you find here, you can see the benefits of it. You're going to see potential for people like what I'm seeing now with Region 10 coming on as well, is that I couldn't get from Winter Springs out to Rifle without paying $4,800 a month recurring for a 1 gig pathway through these singular route. We could go through something called South Canyon. Their area would be only fiber that was going through there, Long Haul, Zayo, or the other two, Government Century, Comcast, and they're going to charge you on the leg because they can. So it restricts your access to their customers. So Region 10 comes online and chomping the bit to get practicing and all that stuff done to get there. We're tying this all into, as you mentioned earlier, BEAD funding. Request to negotiate that we're participating in with Garfield County. We're doing a number of those things as well, because all of these things can work together, and likely is a really good path for this area to take as well, to try and incorporate that BEAD to your incumbent provider, especially very, very to make sure that they stay the incumbent provider. And that's something that we're doing in our areas that are underfunded and underserved and underdeveloped, because we've been trying, but private money can't do it all. So that's been sort of the recurring statement here, and he's very correct. And I'm honestly concerned that even the public money that's coming up right now will need to be. So definitely, I think this is going to be a very good thing for your community, and I think some of the concerns will probably be alleviated over time as it kind of comes all together and you start seeing it. But definitely, congrats. Hope that everything goes quick, fast, and in a hurry. And one other thing from a technical perspective, I wear the salesman outfit, but it's just a costume. I come 25 years of background in the technical aspects. I was a network architect. I was directly responsible for 36 million subscribers with Charter Communications and Time Warner as a team director of data centers and core network backbones. So what he is doing takes typically 3 very, very high level engineers to do. You're dealing with routing engineer, you're dealing with transport engineer, you're dealing with the admin too. So kudos to this guy. I wish I could get him some more people. It'd be awesome. But definitely, I think you picked the right thing to support. So
what do you see, since you've been with all these? What do you see happening, say with Lumen or Century? Do you see them possibly closing their doors to some of their, say, their central offices?
What I'm seeing with Lumen and CenturyLink currently, in bid projects and other larger scale requests for project dollars and requests for broadband providers, is that they are withdrawing their interest from anything that has to do with smaller numbers of residential subscribers.
Yeah, they've been cherry picking the whole metropolitan, like Denver, Portland, and Salt Lake, and
they are taking their hands off as much as possible. They're taking their hands off of the copper side even more so. So legacy copper networks associated with CenturyLink, they're pulling away from so kind of quietly letting it die. They're still supporting it, but they're trying to just kind of.
We're giving notice to the benefit rates. We're not rebuilding that.
that's exactly what we have. They've been mining their copper out, so they can pull some fiber into some of these new big.
Correct. Yeah, basically they pull the copper out of the sheet, use the sheet as the conduit. But that's happening in larger areas where they can have access to the larger customer accounts. So, you're likely to see retirement rates more and more, I would expect here. And that's where I think these kind of projects become more and more important, is because the internet that service provider is gonna be one to take over, providing the phone services, providing all the over top things. And so that's where this becomes critical kind of for smaller towns and locations where you may only have central in some situations because they subsidize the phone provider. So they were paid to everybody, whether it's, this room is classified as a utility, so we don't get that funding. Unless we go beg, borrow, clean, match it, and do whatever we have to do to get it.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, I am a utility.
Oh, hey. Well, I hope you're getting some money.
Well, we really appreciate all the information and your time and effort, so it's gonna be a learning process, it's gonna be changing. I mean, the faster we go, the faster it changes,
It's a learning process for us as well.
yeah. I can't imagine what Jeff Bezos is doing up here trying to duplicate Elon Musk. This guy, so. Anyway.
You can take my calls.
Well, I want to say thank you guys for coming. We're gonna move on here to the next item on the agenda, but thank you. And thanks for coming. I'm so glad that we had interest tonight, so thanks for coming and answering questions. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Melanie, for putting this together. Thank you. It's not easy.
What?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure. Yeah, that's fine. We're gonna get a second.
Thank you.
Speaking of.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I think we're gonna dedicate to everyone. Nothing hasn't been strained. That's the wrong screen.
How far did the applicants that are you got this down?
You got it 2 weeks.
Yeah, came up.
years ago, some big rainstorm. We came up, everything was good, and on the way down, a big rock falling around us, so
Oh.
it was shortly before we got there. Right. Over the going.
Like,
Oh, I would give you there, I don't want you to know that I was coming. Glad that we could hear the people watching. Yeah. You get.
Yeah, that would mean I think I wasn't, just looking in the room and hopefully I could contribute to the, you know, kind of see. Like that. But
okay, there you go.
it's great, so appreciate the invite, hopefully we'll chat again soon. Yeah, thank you. Good evening.
I'll do it again.
What's the name of her? It's me. You guys have a good evening. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, anybody need a body break? Before we start? Maybe
I think the last person said,
you need to use the now time because maybe a little bit more of a. Do we have any more?
I can get you another. Here's that one.
thank you.
The,
Yes, please. Yes.
anybody got a hot curfew, parole officer? Ankle bracelets, anything that should be more than certain time? How you doing? Good, buddy, how you doing? Yeah.
How long are you?
Excuse me, Chuck. Can be a little shorter, but folks get wild, that can be a little bit longer.
I have one, thank you very much.
Would you like water? You still have a water? Okay. Here, I think.
That's we started it.
We already drank water.
I am dehydrated. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
If they, but more maybe part of the, on the city.
Been up since 3:50 and I can, they have
Your power now.
4 hours.
So he might as well learn.
What's up with that?
Well, he's always learning, trying to get their attention back, but.
That's past my bedtime. That's, I mean, that's normally what I set the Zooms. Yeah, that's the safe guess.
Still safe. Yeah.
I hope so.
So I think Gary must be in that.
Yes.
Isn't there talk?
I was gonna say. I actually think Corey's in there.
Oh, God, there it is.
They're in there together. Trouble. It's got two options. Okay. Go. I mean. Bedroom, it's in the bedroom. Leave it at that. Well, I'm gonna, let Dana go. You have a. Really? Oh, yes. Fancy.
Nothing best in the state. All right, so I'm in the back. I use myself, I'm Northwest Regional Manager for the Department of Working Affairs. This is generally about 2 hours. Says 1.5, but you guys can start talking because there's some pretty cool stuff. Some simple legit, speak up, ask questions, use stories. If you've got something that you think it's important to raise it, it's really meant to be interactive and not just me being a talking head because I'm already hoarse and got some water, but I'm gonna try to make it all the way through without taking another body breath. So, some topics may not be 100% applicable. I know your town fairly well, I don't live here, I don't come to all your board meetings, so some of the things we talk about may not be 100% applicable, okay? These are the kind of things we'll cover. Sit through this slide, so you'll know it when we get there, right? So just quickly about DOLA. DOLA has 5 different divisions. I'm in the division of local government. Our function is to help local governments. Literally, that is our statutory job. We're the only state department that can say, we're in government, are here to help them. Well, according to Settlement Field, the Division of Housing, which you may not hear a lot about these days, property tax, disaster recovery, the state demographers in our office. If you've never been to the state demographer's website, I strongly recommend at some point you just Google CDOLA, to CDOLA, demographer, go to their webpage. You can get every piece of information about your town, surrounding towns, the county, any place and every place in Colorado. Age, demographics, genders, you name it, migration patterns. The nicest thing about our state demographer named Elizabeth Garner, if you can't find a piece of information on her website, you can call her and she will customize reports for you. She will get you the data you're looking for about her field. One of the things we have difficulty with, particularly with towns like Colburn, where you've started to get some good second homes and people that are more affluent in, they throw off your demographics. And sometimes we have to make business cases for you not being an affluent town so you can get better grants and loans. State demographer's office helps us with that. The other thing you can look at is you can Google CDOLA, LGIS, and in our local government webpage, we have information file. Every government, county, municipality, statutory town, home charter town, special districts, ambulance districts, you name it. If it's a government entity in the state of Colorado, has to file with DOLA. And they file their budgets, they file their minutes. If they're special district, they file their service plans. There's so much information. I'm gonna leave on that. LGIF, and 2 separate phrases, acronyms. Sometimes they can be very helpful when you're looking at, gee, what are we doing? You compare yourself to Quebec, you compare yourself to Palisade, you compare yourself to Silk, whatever other jurisdiction you want to know information about, you can go on there. You want to just know who another trustee is on another jurisdiction, you can go in and do that. So it's very, very useful information out there. So that's enough about DOLA. Let's talk back here. Our field team is essentially 8 regional managers. I'm in the Northwest, I go from Utah all the way down here to Big City, and from Utah over there, we're a little bit past Steamboat, the other side of Gunnison. There's 8 of us, 4 regional assistants. Like I said, right now, I've got 7 counties, 24 municipalities, 104 special districts. You are my clients. Here to serve you and help you get the thing done that you want to do. One of the things we do is this kind of thing, board trainings. The goal of a board training is to help you be successful as a board, help you successfully run your town, and give you the tools you need to potentially do that. Most people, when they run, they'll end up being a board trainer. So you got to learn somewhere. So we'll start with just the role of government. You've all heard protect life, liberty, pursue justice. Essentially, the role of government is called safety welfare. Our forefathers, way back when, didn't trust government. They hated King George, they wanted tax. So when they set up government, they made it very hard to get things done because they didn't want the tyrannies. They just say, oh, let's just do this, and it happened. They wanted to make sure that people have a voice. You are a part of that voice. You operate under a statutory authority. That's the statutory authority in the state code. Within that, you provide particularly roads within the town, drinking water for the town, groundwater protection, sanitation, police police. Kind of do, used to, now you do it with the sheriff. Housing. Nobody thinks that they're in the housing business. But there's a lot of housing money, and particularly small towns, you may find trouble having teachers at the school, teachers at the med, or nurses, or PAs, or nurse practitioners. You may have trouble getting town staff, and may say, boy, if only the town owns some housing. There's opportunities, for things like that, you may or may not want to get involved in. I think you did opt into Prop 123, so there's additional money, that we're not gonna talk about that, 74. And then economic development, you do some economic development in terms of recruiting businesses, doing broadband, little things like that, try to help new businesses succeed, and people move into the town, obviously that's where you get another profit tax, public sales. So, start with roles and responsibility. What is your role as a trustee? A lot of people start with the traditional, you're the board of directors, right? Everybody heard that before? I have a slightly different approach. Your primary role is to build trust. In everything we talk about tonight, view it from the perspective of, am I building and increasing trust? That's trust between each other. It's trust between the board and staff. It's trust between the board and citizens and staff and citizens. It's the three-way circle. If you think about the problem we have at the national level, regardless of what your political leanings are, nobody trusts anyone. And then people don't get involved in government, they don't want to work for government, and things start stagnating and we don't move forward. So you are the leaders, you were elected to this job. Your primary role is to build that trust. And everything we talk about, the rest of the night, keep that in mind. So what do you do? Yeah, it's the board of directors. We've heard that. So what do you really do? You set policy. You decide this is what we want the town to do on a big scale. You have a fiduciary responsibility for the budget. You approve the budget each year, approve changes to that budget each year. You have to protect public interest. You hire staff, you provide general direction to the staff, and you support your staff. Sure that. What you're not supposed to do is micromanage staff. That gets dangerous. Setting those policies, and if you think about it, if you're Exxon and you're the board of directors, you may say, you know what, we need to do more work in renewable energy. But you don't tell the CEO or the COO or the CFO, we want you to build a 5 megawatt solar plant on this piece of property in the state. That kind of detail is left up to the staff and people who execute on a day-to-day basis to make those decisions and keep you informed of what they're doing. So what do you have to do? These are the things, I'll get you a copy of the slide. I don't want to belabor them, but the big things that I want to talk about are be a big picture thinker. You got to think actually beyond your term. You have to think beyond the scope of just, am I putting fiber in ground? What's that going to do? Is it going to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What's the impact of the new school? Are we a resilient community? We'll talk about that. Protected from wildfire. I mean, over the hill, we can see that. Another thing is being before you all got on the board, you probably had things you wanted to advocate for on behalf of yourself, or on behalf of neighbors, or on behalf of a segment of the town. And that was great. You may have run a campaign saying, I'm going to get on the town board, I want to get this done. And that was an advocacy position. Your advocacy position stops when the board makes a vote. Whether it's a 5-0, 4-1, a 3-2 vote, that now becomes the position of the town. And if you're on the losing end, the minority end of the one person or the two people who lost on a particular matter, you no longer can advocate for that position. Seems weird, What happens if you continue to advocate that position? Do you build trust? Or do you build, destroy trust in your community? That the town has a direction, that the town is unified, that the town board has made a decision. We see it very often, particularly in small town. A minority position, oh, that was a stupid decision, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna fight it, and I'm gonna get a different board elected, and all it does is divide the town. It divides the town, it hurts the town, and it does not build trust. So again, we're always gonna keep going back to that trust. And that's part of being the community builder. And this last one, be respectful, that's civilly very, very important in today's day and age. We touched on it a few times. Become educated in government. How many of you know what CML is? Colorado Municipal League. How many of you have ever gone to a Colorado Municipal League conference?
I've done it for a while.
I strongly advocate in every budget, you pass a little set aside of about $2,000 to send a member of the board to CML. How often are they? It's once a year. And just send one, you can rotate, you can send two if you want, go send 4,000, it doesn't matter. The point is, you get to meet other board members from other jurisdictions. You get to go to sessions and learn about things that other jurisdictions are doing. You get legal updates, legislative updates. You don't have, you're not the only one that's facing the issues you've got. You've got at least 7 other communities along the Colorado River have the same issues, broadband, you have the same issues with, I can't hire marshals. I hear it all the time from, back and parachute and so they're fighting against each other. Every time one raises their fees, the next one raises their fees, and they're constantly chasing each other and what they can pay. Bottom line, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You're not the first one to do something, but if you don't go to those things, you won't have enough to learn. If you send one person, the expectation should be when they come back from the conference, they tell the rest of the board what they learned. The CML has a website. We've ever been on the webpage. You use the resources and look up things, or you on the listserv. Get the message, be on the listserv, get the message. We're going to talk more about email too. Collaborate with other jurisdictions. I think your relationship with Mesa County, and from my perspective, Mesa County does a very good job with all of its municipalities in reaching out and trying to partner. So that's very commendable. This is your municipal code, right? You've got the mayor, and you have 4 trustees. Mayor's the same as all the other trustees. Some places, he only needs to vote if there's a tie. You get the same vote as everybody else. It's always going to be a 5 vote that's going on. You shall appoint these people. You got to have a town attorney, municipal judge, town clerk, and a town treasurer. I think you're the treasurer. Okay, you're the treasurer. Neither of you are the town attorney. I know that. Yeah, the town clerk is probably over there. What's your clerk too? Okay, it can be the same person. But you have to do those, and then you may appoint an administrator. You have, and I think that's a very wise choice. This in your code, you have town administrator, and it says you may appoint it. And it vaguely kind of touches, I think some of it is in the employee notebook or handbook, which I didn't have access to, so I couldn't quote on that stuff. But you set parameters for how the administrator does. And essentially it's implement the policy that you give her direction to do.
Is there a different job description between town administrator and town manager?
No. Some big towns call it a town administrator. Some little towns call it town manager, vice versa. It really doesn't matter. So again, the town administrator, when we go back to the board of directors and the board of trustees, town administrator is the CEO, the COO, the chief executive, and chief operating officer. It's their job to prepare the budget and recommendations that you ultimately approve, recruit, hire, terminate staff, except for the ones that you appoint. Carry out policies, all this stuff. biggest thing your administrator can do, I think. You make $75 per meeting? You make 100?
It's a month. It's a month.
Oh, a month, 100 a month, 75 a month. You don't have time to do all the things that she does. So it's really important that policy. However, what we want to make sure it's clear, make sure there's no gaps, you know, sometimes it would be like, I'll see a board say, okay, get that done pretty quick. What is pretty quick, you know, or do it diligently, be clear, if you have expectations, you have deadlines, you have particular standards. Tell the administrator what they are, but then back away, well, we're accountable. She should definitely be able to do that, and then follow up with periodic performance review. But that's her job, get those things done.
So can we change any of that? Because we were wondering about the board having the final say so on hiring and firing.
You don't want to do that.
Why
Because
do you want to do that?
you don't. I'll tell you why. You have the Colorado Governmental Immunity Act. You're immune from almost any decision you make as a board. When you get into hiring and firing, most lawsuits come from hiring and firing. You want to put yourself in the liability?
Are they going to sue a board of 5 versus 1 person?
Yes, they'll sue the whole board. They'll sue the whole board. It was a board decision. Your job in your charter is not to deal, and in statute is not to deal with hiring and firing. If you go outside of that, you open yourself up to liability. And the Governmental Immunity Act, which keeps you from being liable, doesn't cover it. So your assets.
Or are you talking about wanting?
I'm sorry, you have municipal code and the state statutes. So my recommendation, can you do it? You can do anything you want. I wouldn't recommend it. We'll get into it.
Wouldn't the town administrator have the same liability making that decision?
It's within the scope of her job. So she can't be sued if she's acting within the scope of her job and not violating the law. So obviously, if she violates EEOC or gender discrimination or sexually harasses somebody, yeah, she can be sued. Same as anybody else, but it's outside the scope of your responsibilities. So you lose your wind. It's a dangerous place to be. Okay, talk about that. These are just some kind of the attitudes. Really, it's good communication, budgeting, passion, integrity, strategic planning, vision, creativity, innovation. Those are some of the key things. Obviously, you've got to have a good personal, good foundation. This is just some of that. Role of the board, role of the manager, again, a copy of this. The biggest, again, just not to overly focus on that point, but the board specifically appoints those 4 positions. And the administrator. Beyond that, you've got to be really careful. If you make a recommendation, if you put pressure on the administrator, say, hey, you know, Joe, he looked at me, you need to fire him. If you don't fire him, you're going to get fired. Joe, sue you because you got involved in a personnel matter. It's just that it's very dangerous. And what I'm talking about is best practices. It's advice from professionals. I didn't give you my background. Did you hear my background last time? So you hear the board. Okay. You got 2 now. Take 3 or something. So real quick, my background. I was in the military. I was in the 82nd Airborne 4th Infantry Division. Got out as a captain. Went to law school. Became a prosecutor. Left. Ran a company that introduced credit cards, fast food, movie theaters, grocery stores. Sold that off. Went back to being a prosecutor. Ran for district attorney. Law. Ended up being a chief public defender in Arizona. From there, I was promoted to deputy county manager in Arizona. From there, I became a finance director for a county in Arizona. From there, a city manager in Oregon, from there, a budget manager in a city in Arizona. From there, the court administrator for the city of Las Vegas, Nevada. From there, the development service administrator for the city of Las Vegas, Nevada. From there to here. So, been around,
Really still got the thing once.
you know, back in the day, you always think it's gonna be better and better, it just gets harder and harder the higher you go, if you learn that. The point being, I've been in small jurisdictions, I've been in large jurisdictions, I have failed, I have succeeded, I've learned from everything I've done. And goes through a lot of training over what is essentially a 45-year career of working to this point in government. It's just a thing. You can take it, you can leave it, you know, take what you want from this, okay?
How does the school board get away with that? Isn't it completely different?
Our school board does not hire fire.
Yeah, they do, they have the fire.
I'm the superintendent.
They vote on every contract. They take recommendations, but they vote on every contract, so.
We don't
it
hire
hasn't-
fire.
they-
Not in there.
So they have contract with the
Yeah, they don't hire
which is
fire.
different than hiring fire. If you wanted to do a contract on all your employees, you'd have to say on whether you approve or disapprove the contract, but you couldn't terminate the contract. That makes sense? Okay, so staff's job is to provide you information from which you can judge or base your decisions and to implement your policies. That's their job. Okay, pretty straightforward. Citizens, they got a role, so how the trust goes all the way around, back and forth with all of them. Citizens should be encouraged, and I think you do a great job of providing citizens an opportunity to talk to you. I think the fact you have a 3-minute time frame, is excellent. There's people that don't like it, there's people who do. I think it's always great. You can always deviate slightly from that. Some caveats, which we'll deal with later on. There are some exceptions to how much you should get involved with systems. We'll talk about that. So, relationship. How do you build a relationship? Who's new on that? 2, 3. How do the 3 of you build a relationship with these 2? How do they build a relationship? Did you know them before they got on the board? Some. You have to know them more now. You guys know them before you got on the board? Well, now you get your family, you run this town. And you have to work together. You can still have differences of opinion, and in fact, should have differences of opinion. If I come to a town that every vote I ever see for a town this size is 5-0, I work. It's usually a sign that there's a small minority that either control, or there's a very apathetic board that just says, yeah, whatever, yeah, I'll vote for that, sure. That's scary. You're not doing what's best for your town, if you're not engaging in civil disagreement and coming to decisions, basically, to act on behalf of your town. So how do we do that? It's not easy. It's not easy in any particular environment. You got a lot of obstacles, right? Were you a teacher at the school district? You got principal. I was also afraid of the Board of Education back when I was in school.
Yeah,
You've got gender differences, you've got some age differences, you've got professional background differences. Some of you may have families, some of you may not have families. You're coming from different places. And some of you, as we talked about, may have been advocating for certain things before you got on the board. And now people aren't sharing your point of view on the advocacy of particular issues. You're coming from different places, but you have to get beyond that to work together, okay? The difficulty in moving on after a close vote, I talked about it, it's the toughest thing you'll do. You know, I use this stupid little example that you get a land use issue that deals with how many chickens you can have on a 1/4 acre lot. And somebody wants to say, you shouldn't have more than 6 chickens. That gives you plenty of eggs that you can survive yourself if that's what you're into. But you shouldn't have more than you can have a rooster.
Somebody else thinks, no, 6 isn't enough, you should be able to have a home business and sell eggs, so you should be able to go to 12. And you're adamant because it's 12 because your neighbor has 12. And you may have 12, you're like, oh, this should really be, and you lose. And that's tough to get past. How do you tell your neighbor that, hey, you know what? I supported your position, but the rule is gonna be 6. And that is the town rule. I support the town rule. We're gonna move forward. It's difficult, but you have to be able to do it. If you're gonna build the community's trust in the board as a governing body that can make a decision, stick by the decision and move on. And then board and staff don't always speak the same language. Oh my God, I heard it with Corey. How many of the acronyms he threw out did you like, what are you talking about? And shame on you because you didn't stop him. Wait a minute, I don't understand what you're talking about. Please, if you get one thing from, if staff or a member of the audience uses a phrase, uses an acronym that you don't understand, be bold and courageous enough to politely stop them and say, I'm sorry, you used this, can you please explain what that means? Because the worst thing you can do is not understand it, make a decision based on what you think it is, only then to find out it wasn't what you thought it was, and you screwed up. So make sure you really understand everything that everybody's saying.
So once the decision's made and voted on by the board, it can't come back for rediscussion?
So what rule do you follow? Robert's rule? I'm not an expert, but I can tell you that in my experience, if you vote for a position, you can ask for it to be reconsidered. If you are on the losing end of the proposition, you cannot ask for it to be reconsidered. Otherwise, losers constantly be, no, we need to reconsider, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. No, that the rule is meant for if somebody's like, hey, you know, I got more information, we should take a closer look. So yes, it can come back. Could you at some point in the future come back? Yeah, there's no black and white. You make a decision today, can you come back in a week and say, oh, you know, let's change our mind. Are you building trust and confidence from the public? Probably not. Oh, other board constraints. Sorry, I missed that. So, like 2. Do that with the house too. Like I said, it's $75 a month. Mayor gets out of it. If you're volunteers, I'm sorry. If you volunteer at a job corps or someplace in town, you probably essentially get compensated more through snacks and goodies and free pens or whatever than you do for serving on this board. So you're volunteers, and that's a constraint. It's difficult to really dig in, adequately manage projects or plan engineering or oversee the renovation of the auditorium. You can't do that. $100 or $75 a month. There's no hiring. Who's your boss on the board? No, you're not the boss. Not a surprise. The mayor is not the boss. Growing up, I always thought of the mayor, he runs the board, he's the boss. Nope, nothing. So nobody's here to tell you how to vote. Nobody's here to tell you what to do in your off time. Nobody's here to tell you how to behave. Nobody's here to tell you how to interact with staff. You are self-governed. You have to self-govern yourself, and that's difficult. The best I can tell you is think about the things we're talking about. Maybe try to implement that for yourself, because you really can't tell somebody else how to do it. All right?
Staff can scold the board members for how they vote.
No. Yeah, hopefully they're not. Hopefully they're not. No, staff can never be scolding board. Staff job is to do what the board says to do in policy. So if the board says, you know what, we really want to prioritize this task. Staff job is to, yep, on the way. And I always tell administrators and staff, if a board makes a decision that you believe is unethical or immoral, that you cannot follow, your choice is to quit. Really, and you don't have a choice to fight the decision. That's what the board chose to do. Now, the flip side of that is it's staff's responsibility to give you all of the information you need to make a decision. And if they do that and you just go against their advice, you're elected to do that. Not to go against their advice, but you use your independent judgment and your background, your experience. You get no measure of feedback. Nobody comes in and says, I'm so proud of you for going to that DOLA training last week. You guys did really good. You were really paying attention. I can tell you were attentive. You don't get that. You get that once every 4 years, right? When they vote. And that, I don't know, how many votes put you on the board?
Maybe 6.
6?
Maybe 6.
So a third of the town is saying, yeah, we think you did a good job. You don't get a whole lot of feedback. You really need to draw it from, are we doing the right thing for the town? Is the town moving forward? Is the town a better place because of my actions on the board? And particularly, did we build
trust.
and that open meetings? Oh, got what I got. Sorry for the statement. What a pain. You have to notice everything and can't talk about stuff unless everybody's invited to the party. That's tough. That's limiting, because there are a lot of times you just like to talk it out and try to go over stuff, but you can't. And the reason you can is because our forefathers didn't trust government. They didn't want, who saw Hamilton? Anybody see Hamilton? Nobody else saw Hamilton? There's a song in there, the room where it happened. And it's all about this backdoor deal that Jefferson and Hamilton, yeah, that Jefferson and Hamilton made. But that's the way things were done. And if you think of your criticisms of the federal and or state government, it's about secret deals, right? It's about last minute amendments thrown on bills at the legislature that nobody even has time to read or think about before it gets enacted into law. We don't like that. You've got the opportunity at the local level in particular to start building that trust. And you do that by letting people who come to the meeting, these are the reasons we are making our decisions. This is the information we're dealing with, and this is why we're making these decisions. When you do that and the public sees it and it's open and it's transparent, it builds trust. And building trust helps you even more because people don't just come walking in accusing you of bad intent or bad actions because they've seen it. Okay. All right. As quick as I can. So staff constraints, multiple bosses. If you talk to a public works guy and he's still in a pothole, who's he talking to? He thinks he's talking to his boss. He's not. That's the boss. But he or she thinks he's talking to the boss. So you got to be real careful when you're talking to staff. I don't know what Melanie's policy is or anything else, but I would suggest to you that if you talk to a staff member, you should let Melanie know you talked to staff member and what it was about. And it sounds like an overkill. If you go see somebody filling a pothole and you say, hey, how'd you wife? She over COVID, is that okay? You don't need to tell them when you talk to somebody about that. But if you talk to somebody and they were filling a pothole and you say, that is the best we can do, you ought to be telling Melanie that you thought there was some kind of an issue there.
Well, whether it's staff or a contractor or something comes up, that's why you need to call them.
Yes.
Yes, the administrator.
Yes. And I say this a lot, but we're going to cover this a few times. When you give information to her, it may be on a contractor that was doing something that you didn't like. If that's information that she's thinking, you know what, the rest of the board should know this because this impact, and she has an obligation to get it out to the rest of the board. Similarly, and we'll cover this, if you ask her a question on an agenda item and there wasn't in the backup material, she has an obligation to provide every other board member with the same response that she provided to you. so that everybody comes to meetings with the same amount of information. Nobody gets to have a monopoly on a piece of information that they withhold from everybody, but use as a basis for their decision. The rest is fairly self-explanatory, changing agendas, changing priorities. That's why you really don't want to keep chasing the ball. Let's reconsider, redo this. You set the agenda and make a decision to go forward. When you work together. Anybody watch the Olympics yesterday? No. Yeah, working. I just happened to catch a little bit on the news. The men's gymnastics team. It's like each member of the team had an apparatus that they were really, really good at. And as a team, they were able to get a bronze medal. Individually, none of them would have got anything. It's kind of like that when the board is working together. When you work together, things happen. Decisions are made, directions are given, and staff goes out and makes changes. And it's really good to look at. And you set the tone for the entire organization. When you're civil to each other, staff's going to be civil, citizens are going to be civil. It just, Paonia, you all know Paonia. Used to be just terrible. And I tell the mayor, I tell this story. It was terrible. In a board meeting, staff would be yelling at board members would be yelling at staff, the public would be yelling at staff would be yelling at the public. It was embarrassing. We went through several training. We talked about civility. How do you deal with those situations? How do you set an environment which is more professional? And they turned it around. And it only took like 6 to 9 months. And they're so much better now than they were. So if you think about those things as you deal with each other, deal with staff, deal with the public, it will really help. Your words and actions. Unintended consequences. The worst example I ever saw of this was in the county in Arizona, and it was fairly contentious. There were a segment of the community that was very into libertarianism, call it what you want. And as they were addressing the board of supervisors, we call it, one of the supervisors responded and said, "You people." Boom. It just destroyed that county for years because they were seen simply as separating this group and that group. And instead of being an inclusive community that listened to all the voices, it just destroyed it. It got so intense and ultimately destroyed that community. It was horrible. They weren't quite sovereigns, but it was just unintended. Unintended, but you really have to watch the way you act and the words you use because they can have such horrific and instantaneous consequences. And then, like I said, discussion and disagreement are part of the process. I love to come to a board meeting and hear good disagreements with civility and good points of view, and not founded on emotion, but founded on fact and on the best interests of the town in mind. If that's the way you're approaching things, you're going to do great things. So, what are signs that maybe there's a problem? If you don't have a common set of values, might be a problem. If two of you want to keep small town, want to continue to have the cows herded through town once a year, and somebody else wants a Walmart, that's a different set of values. Right?
We were slated for a city market back in the 70s.
So depending on how different those values are, and it's not just those values, it's things like integrity, honesty, transparency. If you don't all value those kind of things, and I talk about those as the core values of the town, if you don't share it, it shows. Is everyone engaged? When you come to meeting, you stay and participate, and that's not meant to put pressure on you if you have to. And are you courteous to each other and to staff and to citizens? And is it mirrored back to you? If it's not being mirrored back to you, it's probably because you're not set an example and how. So what happened? You know, dysfunction, when you have discord. There's a lack of productivity, you don't get stuff done. You know, you keep kicking the ball down the road, you're can down the road, you know, decisions, that's not good for the town. There are huge financial consequences. If this board exhibits horrible discord and dysfunction, those ISPs that were here thinking they might want to come serve town might say, it's too risky. Never know which way they're gonna go. And they don't come. Employees that might otherwise come. Watch on Zoom. And they see the dysfunction happen, and they don't come. Businesses that might come, somebody who might want to invest in one of your buildings and open a business, they don't come. Obviously the public embarrassment, loss of confidence from your community, loss of trust from your community, and you drive away the best and brightest. You know, when it's tense, and staff has to worry, they're gonna find it out. I guarantee you, you don't pay your staff enough to keep back Palisade from hiring more. So the way you keep them is to treat them with respect, treat them civilly, have that kind of discord, act as a team, a unified team. Oh, I did it again. So what do you do? So good intentions. Listen more than you talk. You've all heard that 2 ears, 1 mouth thing. Try to find common ground. Be respectful and engaged with posture, tone, body language. You've all heard 20% of communication is the word you say. Everything else is your posturing, your tones, the eyes, the rolling. It's so difficult when you get a member of the community that you know as an outlaw. You're just like, oh, sit there and not roll your eyes. And kind of look down, start texting, but you gotta just not do that stuff and give every person the attention that they feel they need. You've got the tool in place to stop the discussion. You got a 3-minute timer. You don't have to put up with it and pretend for more than 3 minutes. But take the most out of that 3 minutes. I just want to talk about define the common ground. In almost any issue, there are extremes, right? And I'll use this one, and I've been told it's this state fault. I shouldn't be using, but it's the phone class, so I'm going to. Take the abortion. There are people who absolutely no way, never under any circumstance. There are people who say anytime, anyway, anywhere. But if you look at the public view, the amount of people who agree with those outliers is fairly small. And as you start to approach the middle, the amount of people who agree on a position grows. It's a bell curve. Your job is to find space in that bell curve and find the space that moves your town forward. That's the common ground. It's not to get stuck at one end of the spectrum or the other, or to let people on one end or the other get you stuck and keep your town from moving forward. Find that common ground. Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, remember, do you record your Zoom meetings and you archive them? Everything you say in a meeting, everything you do is out there on the internet for every job applicant, every business, every potential future board member to see and to use as a tool to evaluate talent. It's there forever. Or at least as long as the public records make you keep that stuff. It's a different day than when you just have a summary minute, raise this issue, took a vote, 5-0. That's not the way it is. And use your administrator as a tool and other staff. Make sure that Melanie knows what it is you want, kind of information you want from her, the job you want her to do, and let her do it. And staff as well. Make sure your direction is clear. Okay, again, don't be vague in your direction. The value of a full-time administrator, you guys are lucky to have it. So much goes on every day.
I tell you, I got 7 counties, 24 municipalities, and 104 specialties. I don't have time. But I'm constantly sending emails, grant opportunities, funding opportunities. We worked on the auditorium for years, on how to piece that project together. And working on this school district water pipeline. You know, my job is to work with your staff to put those kind of projects together. And they take they take a lot of time. Anybody can say, let's build a water line. But building a water line with the right kind of planning and the right kind of prep work sets you up for grants, preferential loans with loan forgiveness. And that doing it that way saves the town tons of money. So it's really important you have an administrator there. And it's not just to work with DOLA, work with CDPHE, work with CDOT, and so many different state agencies, as well as the county, AG&C, other jurisdictions, you know, carry the Guinness down in the back, and Janet over in Palisade, they're constantly working, so kudos to you. You wouldn't have a school with a part-time principal. You get stability in the town projects. You guys are 4 years. You probably have 2 more.
Yes.
You only have 2? See, so boards come and go at the will of the election. And that's not to say a manager or an administrator can't come and go as well. But if they're doing their job, they provide the town that stability. So it's a really good advantage. Grant utilization, having an administrator that understands grants is very big. Talked about the intergovernmental relationships and the project development. I can spell implementation. Sorry. Educators. So how do you set goals and priorities? How many of you know what your capital plan is? What's your #1 capital priority this year?
Capital priority this year has been the auditorium, but generally it's the streets and the water and sewer infrastructure.
So you're responsible for safety, infrastructure, and empowerment, right? It's really health, safety, welfare. Just think about it. Those are always your overriding priorities. To the extent those priorities fit into that, categorize them. Really, these are the things you should be doing at the board. So it's not the budgeting priority, it's a board challenge. And we'll just because someone says, that's what I've always done. You challenge your law enforcement, right? You said, yeah, let's try not to have a motion contract with the sheriff's office. You challenge the process. You're trying something new, kudos to you. Promote the shared vision of what the town is going to be. This is part of that unified board. If you're unified with the vision is, it's easier to promote, and then you can list other people to help you, whether it's future board members, volunteers, anything. Enable others to act, empower others to act, give them the tools to act, model the way, recognize the contributions and accomplishments of your staff, as well as town members, if you can.
So if a big town member comes and they say that they would like to be on a committee, you can refer them to the town manager and let that go from there.
You can, but ultimately I assume the committees are set up by the board.
Normally,
So it's really up to the board who sits on the committee.
well, like with electronic communications, there's all kinds of things that came up for this, and I didn't interject on any of it because I would be ridiculous myself, and it wasn't brought up to the parking lot over there, talking about a swimming pool, volleyball, sand pit, and all this kind of stuff. I'm like,
So one of the great things you have as a board is the scapegoat of the administrator. So when a citizen comes to you and they're like, oh, we really should do this and do that. You know what? Why don't you go talk to the administrator about that? You know, I'd like to hear from her. And step away, because sometimes, well, we're gonna talk about
legislative versus quasi judicial actions. Sometimes it's hard to tell when a member of the community is coming at you like that, whether you're gonna get sucked into a discussion that's gonna bite you later. In a quasi judicial environment particularly. So don't feel like you're shirking your responsibility. You just can't explore every single thing in town. So when it gets a little too deep in the weed, it's staff's job to sort that out. Not necessarily yours. Don't be afraid to refer it over. Understand your colleagues and have a singular set of priorities that you can actually implement. You've all heard of SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time sensitive, right? So these are kind of the tools for implementing stuff, and I thought briefly, but I'm not sure how many of these you really have. I know, I think we found the comp plan, right? So I know you're going through the comp plan process, but really, you have to have a mission and guiding principles. It starts with a vision statement, and then a mission statement. Everybody heard the story about JFK going to NASA? No, JFK goes to NASA, he's walking down the hall, and there's a janitor, he asks the janitor, what do you do? And the janitor says, I help put a man on the moon. Everybody at NASA, that was their mission. If someone came and asked one of your town staff or your public works person, what is their mission? What would they say? If they asked you as a board member, what is your mission? What would you say? If they asked you, what's your vision for the town? Would each of you have your own vision, or would you have a common collective vision of the town? If they asked, what core values do you have that kind of oversee how this town is run, what it is? You have the same things. Maybe integrity, honesty, transparency, respect, civility. Those are your values. Do you all have the same basic set of core values? Once you get those become a guiding principle. It's kind of the old adage, if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. But when you get to the end of the path, people will be. So it's always good to know where you want to go. That's the guiding principles. You then have a strategic plan, vertical account plan, long-term financial plan, capital improvement plan, and all that feeds into your hand. If you don't have fundamental foundation, it's tough to know if the other pieces are heading in the right direction. So hopefully the comp plan gets you that. If not, I will work with you and we'll continue to develop this. These are some of the things that go into comp. I don't know if you've heard, you got the comp plan, 3 mile plan, everybody know what that is? Okay, annexation plan. How many IGAs do you have with other governments? Do you have any planned unit development? Might you have planned unit developments? Do you know what planned unit development is? You know what an area of state interest for 1041 power is? If not, that's something we should definitely get on the CMO website and look up. The subdivision regulations, do you know what all your zoning and building codes are? And any incentives or programs, like affordable housing or business incentives. There's so much stuff that goes into planning. Another piece, well, it's really good to have professionals. I put up diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It can be a controversial term, much like the term progressive. It all depends on how you use it. I would recommend that the way the town views diversity, equity, and inclusion is simply this. Are all the voices in your town allowed to be heard? Are they given a forum? Are they given an invitation? Are they given the means to be heard? So as an example, I'm guessing you have some Hispanic families. Are they English speaking, fluent? If not, what do you do to provide them material? Do you have disabled people? And do they have access to your park? Elderly, blind, all those kind of things that tie into your community. And they're important members of your community. Are you including them, what your vision is for the community and what your plans are for the community? So just think about that. Resiliency. and you survive almost anything. Nobody would have thought 5 years ago we were gonna have a pandemic, right? We didn't plan for it. But do you have a wildfire plan? Do you have a wildfire buffer? What do you do if the fire starts on the west end? What do you do if it starts on the east, north, south end? What do you do if it just pollutes the ash or your watershed? What do you do if there's a major fuel truck spill right in the middle of town? What do you do if there's a bomb that goes off in your town or natural gas is flowing? Can you survive and recover from those things? That's what resiliency is really about. You know, what if the creek does flood over the banks in a year or two, and get more and more snow and runoff? So resiliency is simply about doing that kind of planning. When you're looking at the vision and the mission and the capital plan, are you including things to make sure your town is resilient? So meetings. He's right. You got agenda, you got copy of the prior minutes, and you got the backup for the current agenda, right? Just be prepared. Read them. What's your largest agenda? How many pages? Backup.
2.
6.
600 pages of backup, and you get it a week in advance?
No, they did it Friday.
So 4 days. 4 days in advance to read through 600 pages. Okay. It must have been you guys. Did you guys get the 600 pages? Did you read? Okay, don't answer. Don't answer. The entire 600 pages in depth and really understand. It's unlikely you're paying $75 a month. You got family, you got gardens, you got grocery shopping, you got internet, you got Netflix, so many things in life to interrupt, but yet it's your responsibility to do it. So what do you do? Don't read that yet. What do you do? What do you go read? So what do you do if you just can't? You just can't. Your kid broke a leg, something happened, and you just couldn't get to this kind of pages. What do you do?
Understand what all is in the 600 pages, as in, is it a contract? Do you really have to read the whole contract that's already been approved and it's just been given to you as backup? Maybe not. For me, it's getting to understand what those key issues are and looking through, being able to scan through and reading the information that I know I need to know.
Okay, which is great. So you don't know what you don't know. Right.
I also depend on my staff.
Tell me more about it.
I ask questions of the staff if I have questions. If they're, when they're at a meeting, I make sure that they have talked about what it is the proposal is, make sure they have the opportunity to give us the background and ask questions as we go along.
Okay, so now okay. So you've been busy, you didn't get a chance. What do? Don't show up. There's 4 people that still vote on it, right? Worst case, it's a 2-2 tie. Or do you contact staff to find out if there's gonna be a quorum? There's not gonna be a quorum, you don't order that, right? And ask if they can give you an overview of the topic. Or email the other board members before the meeting, get their thoughts on what the issues are and how you should vote. Okay, somebody pick one that it's not.
It's not A.
Okay. So you can pick another one that is not. Oh, this should be so much easier than this. You do not email other board of commission members before the meeting. 1, you don't email them, and 2, you sure they don't ask permission. That would be a violation of open. Okay. You do what you say. You have questions?
No, I was just gonna say, my personal experience is, in the first, several months, came on board with an April.
So, a lot of the things that were in the agenda were things that were done prior to my time of being on the board. So I really, I read the material, but I just didn't really understand what precipitated a lot of the things that took place. So rather than, let's say, for example, the auditorium, that was all made, this decision was made before I came on. I didn't agree with it as a citizen, but I went along with it because the decision was made on the board that before I came on. So, I found myself, and I think that would be something should be communicated in future elections. You said you think you want to go on the board. Get behind it earlier so that you understand what precipitated, what was happening before you came on board, because a lot of times I didn't want to feel like it was silent, but I wasn't, it was just something that had taken place prior to my coming around. And the decision that was made by others, and I'm not going to come here and try to usurp that. So that was just part of my frustration in terms of coming on the board with somebody that we were making decisions on, and try to educate myself as well. And again, try to support the previous board who had already made, they put that in motion. The auditorium, the broadband, the comp plan, things of that nature.
Well, kudos to you for that approach. But I would also say, don't hesitate, if you don't understand the background, even if it's something that happened before. You can still contact staff and then should to say, hey, can you just give me the background? Preferably don't ever tell staff how you're gonna vote. They can never keep a secret and they shouldn't share that with us, don't tell them. But you can ask them, what precipitated this? What was the thought process behind it? You're still probably going to agree with the ultimate outcome, which is to approve a contract or something. But it's good to know that background, just in case it changes your mind. That's okay. A well-informed decision goes the best. Good for you. And like I said earlier, if you call any member of staff, if it's not Melanie, then her member of staff could tell her that you called and what the information required was. And if it's truly information that's missing, even if it's not missing from the packet, if it's just something you didn't see, she should tell all the board members what that was. So she can either do that individual emails or probably BC emails to say, hey, just wanted to make this clear on this particular agenda item. And that would be a good practice. So don't be afraid to ask them, because odds are somebody else has this question. All right, so regular meetings, they happen all the time. They happen when they're supposed to happen. They're noticed. Special meetings, I am not going to dwell on this. Quick rule on special meetings: don't hold a special meeting. Oh no, never mind. Forget that. I'm thinking executive meeting. Special meetings, just like regular meetings, they just fall out of the same. Work sessions. Here you are in a work session. The only thing you really need to know about a work session is you can't make decisions. That's it. You can talk right up to the decision point. And go ahead.
Could you back up that slide?
Yeah.
So you're saying, okay, now down it says does not have to occur in chambers. So if we want to have a work session, let's say we want to go up to Padawan and all get together. Good. Now, do we have to let the public know that we want to meet up the Padawan? Yep. And include them in that meeting?
You don't include anybody, you just notice and invite, they're invited.
So what I'm saying is, we want to do, let's say, what you might call a retreat. And you want to get together and discuss something.
It's a work session.
Work session.
Public's invited. Now,
But it doesn't have to be, it could be, in a different setting.
happens all the time. Now, the difference at a work session, you do not have to accept public input. Okay, so they can come and they can watch. I don't expect anybody folks watching it and ask questions or want to tell me things to do or not do, or to listen to me or not to listen to me. But you don't have to take their session. Okay. This is the one, executive session. I'm not going to touch it except to say, do not hold an executive session without talking to your town attorney, period. Do not do it. So one-on-one, okay to meet one-on-one with constituents?
Yeah.
All the time? Made you think, made you think. No, no. Talk about why not. Okay, how about with staff, one-on-one?
But not all the time.
Be careful of meeting with staff one-on-one. So you want to meet with Melanie on something, can you tell her to do something?
No.
You tell her to do something?
Don't know.
Who can tell her to do something?
The board as a whole.
The board as a whole. So be very careful about the one-on-one meetings, feeling like you're directing somebody. If it's simply to ask a question, or my email's down or something, that's fine. But be careful about it feeling like you're giving direction. Obviously, no quorum. A quorum for you guys is 3. So anytime 3 of you together, it's a public meeting. Together, we'll talk about what that means.
So when we go to the street now, there's all of it there.
We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. It's a great question. It comes up a lot. Be careful of ex parte communication, but that's the one-on-one that you can't do. This is how people think you make decisions, you know, it's whatever loudest voice I hear, that's what I'm gonna vote for. Be careful, and you'll see a quote right at the very end. The popular decisions are not always the right decisions. The right decisions are not always popular. So, you know, you have to always be driven by building trust and the best interest of the town, not self-interest, not the interest of somebody else, best interest of the town. I will still be that one way. So types of actions: legislative, quasi-judicial. A legislative act is essentially an action that affects everybody in town. So how many chickens you can have on a piece of property, it affects everybody. Changing the speed limit in the town, it affects everybody. A piece of zoning on a property affects the property owner. And that becomes a quasi-judicial. A license. Somebody wants a liquor license, they want a food license, whatever other kind of licenses you have. That affects one applicant, that's quasi-judicial. We use the term quasi-judicial because you don't get to wear black robes and you don't sit in a court, right? Other than that, you're judicial. Each of you is 1/5 of a judge's mind. And collectively, you are a judge over a matter. So you've all seen Law and Order, NCIS, any number of stupid TV shows or movies about courts and lawyers and plaintiffs and defendants, right? But there are some pretty basic things that always go into those shows. There's rules. And the rules are what make a quasi-judicial proceeding different. When you get in there, now let's go back. Public meetings, you're just making law. Okay, you got your public hat on, your legislative hat. You want to hear anything and everything from the public because you're making laws governing them. Okay, you seek broad input. If you are down at the gas station and somebody wants to talk to you, go for it. We'll talk about whatever they're interested in terms of the law making, the legislative action that you're doing. Remain courteous. People that have opinions as to how many chickens or roosters you should have. And they won't always be nice opinions. Your responsibility is always to be civil and courteous. Public hearings are totally different. You got a rule. If you think about the fact you're now a collective judge, have you ever seen, I shouldn't say ever, is it common in one of these crime drama with a trial movie that the judge goes out and talks to witnesses outside of the courtroom? No. Does the judge on his own go view the scene of the crime and the scene of does he on his own go research Google and do that kind of stuff? No. It's the same kind of expectations of you guys in a quasi-judicial scenario. So you have to hear evidence at the hearing. So when we talk about you can't talk to one-on-one to constituents, if it's the constituents that filed for the liquor license, and he wants to talk to you about that liquor license, not gonna happen. Now that gets murky. Somebody wants to build a housing project, or build an apartment.
And they're thinking of doing it on a piece of property that's zoned single family residential. And they come and they talk to you and say, you know, would the town of Colburn be amenable to some apartments? Maybe rezoning some single family properties. Can you talk to that person?
To a point. To the point where they say, well, I'm going to apply for. Or, I'm gonna do this. You can say, well, maybe, or best thought would be. You should go talk to the town administrator about that.
There you go. I don't like the maybe answer. Go talk to the town administrator. Good. I said the giver again.
Sorry.
At some point, when somebody becomes so obviously focused that they're gonna bring an application or likely to bring an application, you stop talking to them. Just say, go talk to the town administrator. Because the worst thing that can happen is that they're talking to you and you say, oh, hell no, I would never approve changing a single residential to a multi-residential property. No. And then they bring an application and you vote no. And guess what they're gonna claim? You prejudge the matter. And you should not have sat on it. And sue the town. You may not win, but you're gonna spend money defending the town. So don't put the town in that position. Okay? That fairly, it's really kind of that simple. Now, the semi more difficult part is whenever there's an application, you have a set of rules. It may be your building code, it may be the requirements for a license, but it's a checklist. And if that applicant comes in and they check everything on the checklist, you must approve the application. You must. If you don't, you're gonna get sued because you didn't follow up. Okay. On the other hand, if they didn't check something on the checklist, you can deny, and in fact, should deny the application. Now, when we get there, the last thing on here talks about make careful motions. That used to, does it meet the standards and make careful motions? Make sure I get on the right slide to do this so often. It really goes back to these two board decisions, clear and defensible. You have to be real clear when you deny somebody that you state they did not meet standard 2B of the municipal code. And here's why I don't think they met it. And then support that with your no vote. If you don't do that, and you just say, nah, I vote to deny. Get sued. You may win. You won't be liable individually, but you'll spend money on attorney's fees. Don't waste the time. Make sure you're very clear and very specific about why you deny or approve an application. Now, one of the
And by, in that discussion, if you're saying that you don't, another important reason for saying that you don't agree with something is that you may be able to change somebody else's mind by stating what it is you don't agree with, why you don't agree with it. If they've been, and help the other board members to make their decision.
Yeah, a good example may be you might have a poorly written part of the code that says, if you're building a lot, you shall not obscure the visible line of sight to an adjoining house. And somebody says, well, it looks like it's gonna obscure it to me, so I'm not gonna do it. If you think, oh, I don't think that's gonna obscure it, then let's state that. But if it's something as simple as the building height is supposed to be capped at 21 feet on a 2-story building, and the plans clearly say it's 21 feet 6 inches, and you should say, no, that we have to disapprove this. Our code says you can't be taller than 21 feet. Period. End of story. Now, how many of you been on planning issues where you do a variance or a condition? We'll approve it with condition.
The biggest thing on this is. Look at that. These are about some of the things, never ask for a vote of the audience. Don't respond to the stuff going on. And we'll come back to it. So this is the big thing. You have to have factual foundation for the conclusions. They have to go straight down through the standard. And frankly, your discussion and your staff report would say, these are the standards. The staff may say, we don't think it does, we think it doesn't. That's up to staff, writes their reports. You have to ask questions designed to get evidence about the standards. If it's a planning thing, don't go say to the guy, well, wait a minute, weren't you the guy that smoking pot in high school? It's nothing to do with the standards. Don't get into it. Okay, just follow the standards. Make sure you follow your process. Never base a decision on your gut. I know you checked on the boxes for a liquor license. And tattoo of a swastika on his face. I don't get a good feeling. Guess what? You're gonna get sued. If he met the conditions, you're gonna get sued and you're gonna lose. Yeah. So the big thing is, here we go. Motions on quasi-judicial things are extremely important. Make sure they're very, very clear and concise. Never, ever vote on a complex motion. If you're going to approve something with conditions, make a motion on condition 1, get a vote. Make a motion on condition 2, get a vote. Make a motion on whatever, however many conditions you've got, get your vote. Then make the motion to approve, subject to the conditions that have been approved. Sounds silly, sounds time consuming, but it makes her job really, really easy. And as far as the applicant is concerned, it makes the basis for your decision extremely clear. It will limit your exposure to being sued. Okay, I'm not going to go back to this slide. How many of you have social media accounts? Personal social media accounts. Personal. No, none of you have personal social media accounts. When you got elected, you swore to sit on the board. Your social media account is not a public social media account. It's open to anybody. See it. Right. And they will troll you. They will look for things. They will put comments on there. And everything you post or you say is a reflection of the town, not a reflection of you. Because your social media site doesn't say, oh, I'm to the Evans, but this is just my personal account. I'm not, and you could even say it, I'm not speaking on behalf of the town. It doesn't matter. You're reflecting. My recommendation is go very, very radar silent about your personal social media account. I understand people have these other communicate with families, keep track of stuff. Just be aware it's public. There's no such thing. All right, there you go. Your responsibility, health, safety, welfare, build trust in everything you do. So here's a scenario. You have one of those quasi-judicial, let's say it's a land use, somebody wants to build something, and somebody in the audience back here starts asking the applicant questions. Is that okay? Mr. Mayor, you're the chair. Is that okay? No. Okay. You're pro temp. He's not here. What do you do?
Well, that's not the procedure.
Okay. Tell them you don't ask questions of the applicant. If you have questions, you'll get an opportunity afterwards to come up and ask the board those questions, and we'll ask you. So do not let people talk straight with applicants. No, the opponent, you got this 3-minute time limit, right? So, and here's the guy that wants to build something, and there's a guy that's like, I really support this. I need more than 3 minutes. Or no, they oppose it. Say, I need more than 3 minutes. What do you do?
You need to get on the agenda.
You're in it. You're in a quasi judicial hearing.
With some latitude, say, okay, if you need an extra 36 seconds or whatever to get your point across. Otherwise, they need that.
So you literally need to put it back. Same applicant, but now people are lined out the door in opposition to the project. What do you say to the first person that walks in wants more than 3 minutes?
Maybe get on the agenda, I guess.
You're in a quasi judicial hearing, they're on you. They're opposing the application. Any ideas?
Thank them for their testimony and remind them there is a time limit which must be followed consistently and fairly for all people.
Words to that effect. It's very natural when there's not the line at the door to say, okay, go ahead, you can have a little bit extra time. The problem with that is you're on Zoom. Future applicants are watching your process. And when they come in and they ask for an opponent, and you say, no, the line's out the door, you gotta stay with 3 minutes. They're gonna say, you gave this other person more than 3 minutes. If you don't do that for me, you're violating my due process. And your town is gonna get sued.
It's like a police officer who doesn't write a ticket for one person, but does the other.
Yeah. Hold people accountable to the 3 minutes. If they're literally getting ready to wrap up, that's a few seconds, just say, please wrap up your comments. Unfortunately, you don't have a thing where you can turn off the mics, but at the end of the day, you gotta turn them down. So now you got the same thing, line out, and the person comes out and says, well, these other 10 people behind me, they're willing to give me their 3 minutes. So I'd like 33 minutes total. What do you do?
It's still 3 minutes, one person.
And our policies, we have a policy that, you cannot, yeah, you can't give your time to someone else.
And
It's me too.
where is that?
It's in the, we usually have them sitting out here.
Right.
It's on the.
Yeah.
So that you can't donate time.
You can't come in.
So you're gonna listen to all 11 people for 3 minutes apiece.
If they want to talk and they're saying the same thing, yep, you get to listen to all of them. You could also ask them to submit their comments in writing.
Are you denying me an opportunity to be heard?
No,
Not violating my First Amendment free speech?
you can offer them the opportunity to do that. And if they want to, they will, and if they don't want to, you get to hear.
So the recommendation, best practice. If you want to listen to God knows how many people lined up at 3 minutes apiece, you're not going to have too many people running for the board next time. Hopefully it will never happen. But you can absolutely say to the second person, if you have something different to say or to add, please proceed, you have 3 minutes. If they cover the exact same stuff, you can cut them off. Let's say we have too many people here, the board has that information, and you can cut them off. It's not just best practice. It's up to you how you want to do it. And part of the problem with people donating 3 minutes, the clerk has to keep track of who donated and to who.
I've been in one of those hearings.
Yeah.
That's. If it becomes clear, you have to deny it. And the applicant says, well, if you deny me, I'm gonna sue you. What do you do? It becomes clear you're gonna have to deny an application. And the applicant says, if you deny this, I'm gonna sue the town.
Well, then better talk to our lawyer. I can't give any legal response in terms of that might be valid or not. I mean, if they say they're gonna sue the town, then I guess I would suggest you better find out the legitimacy of your threat.
So close, and I would suggest that that kind of a direct response, literally those words, is kind of like saying you people. It says, come on, bring it, right? Versus simply saying, thank you very much for your time, we have a difficult decision. Thank you, and enter your discussion. Just don't even address the fact that a person threatens you, because that'll happen all the time. You always get threatened to sue by somebody who doesn't like what your decision is. Live with it, you're immune. When you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And of course, make sure you're very clear why you are denying, maybe even a little more than you usually do. So ex parte, talk about that. Don't talk to somebody that's involved in quasi judicial or even a witness, anybody. If there's a quasi judicial issue, you don't talk to anybody about it. You refer them to town staff.
So if people want to talk to us about the potential subdivision that may be coming to town that we all already know about. Because the town manager, we don't talk to them at all.
No.
So I mean, what are their basic questions? Cause I got here, they're like, how many houses do they wanna do? How many?
You know what? Best place to find that information is to go to town hall, ask about it.
Is it kosher to just keep a copy that's public information that was submitted to us?
If it's public, you can. You can. There's nothing wrong with that. I would just suggest the easier path is just to say, you know, I'm not, that's a pending matter. I'm not free to discuss that. Best of luck, you know.
And that's for John.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah, don't get yourself into.
And if your property border is theirs for 1,000 feet, you gotta discuss the fence line. So you go talk to the town manager.
Yeah, but think about, remember, you're 1/5 of a judge's brain. If somebody comes and talks to you about the fact they've got a property line issue, that 1/5 of the brain now knows something the other 4/5 doesn't. And you have no way to communicate it without violating open meeting law. Just ignore it. It's just not a position you want to be put in. So what do? Pretty close. You stop them. You explain why the contact is inappropriate. This is a pending matter before the board. I can't talk to you about it. Please go see the town administrator. She'll be happy to listen to what you have to say. And then he's gonna tell them, hey, you know, come to the meetings. Put your comments in writing, whatever, we'll include with the agenda packet. And then you should disclose the contact. Staff. Let staff know that you're a contact person. Now again, if they come up and say, hey, you know, can we talk about that subdivision? And you're like, I really can't. You don't need to disclose that. But if they're like, you know, that fence is already on my property and they're violating my easement. Oh, yeah, okay, stop. I'll talk to town staff and then disclose that that nature of that town staff. If there was enough in that town, that contact, you may need to recuse yourself.
That's my question. So
You may.
you're
So I would.
in contention with what's going on, and it could affect you, you would have to recuse yourself.
Well, that's different from ex parte. That's a conflict of interest.
Okay,
So ex parte is just when you've got information that you shouldn't have because of a contact. You know, you shouldn't be sitting there. If you recuse yourself either on because of a conflict of interest or an ex parte contact, please leave the room. Don't sit there and just be silent. Because that will be viewed as you still influencing the room. And you will. You won't be aware of it, but you will. You'll sigh, you'll eye roll, you'll nod, you'll slump, you'll do things. Just take it totally out of the equation. So, mayor's been decades in town. Yeah, he's been 34 years. I think that's what I saw. So
you call up a newest board member a couple days before a public hearing because you just want to give a little background. Is that okay? Oh, I'm not gonna put you on the spot since you're in there. Is that okay?
No,
Why?
because he's giving him he's trying to sway a board member, or he could be trying to sway the board members' vote. He's also giving the board member information that the other board members are not getting.
And they may or may not. And your best intentions may not be to sway, simply to bring up some facts. It's just historical background, kind of like Gary was missing on the auditorium, right? But how is Gary likely to perceive that? He's likely to perceive it that you're exerting some sort of influence. And if it becomes known to the public, does it build or detract from trust? Detract. So remember, just always, if you just keep that build and trust in mind, you're never going to go wrong. Like, it's a difficult one for a small town, someone to stick it, because if it, you know every property in town. You probably walk by it and you're walking the dog or drive by on the way to the store, so you're always doing site visits. Conflict of interest, you have a conflict of interest inside your municipal code. It just says, if you got one, you can't vote. It's pretty simple. Right. Conflict of interest, however, is not necessarily that clear. Your husband applies for a liquor license. Conflict of interest? For you to sit on that hearing?
Yes,
Why?
this is a family member and there's and possibility that there's no possibility, we will both benefit from the.
There's a financial top, right? Your cousin owns a piece of property that he wants to subdivide into 2 lots. Conflict of interest or not?
No.
Yes, a yes, a no. No,
Yes,
I'd say if you're blood, they're blood.
So there's no financial interest in there.
You don't know that.
so it kind of, you hate your cousin. Conflict of interest?
Yeah.
That's a bias. It's a bias. Not technically a conflict of interest. It's dicey. So when you get to these dicey ones, can let your town manager, town administrator know, and let your town attorney know. They will help you walk through the conflict of interest.
So, so a citizen says it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to pay.
No,
No,
not when you're on this board. Because asking forgiveness is generally means defending a lawsuit.
Right.
So disclose, they'll walk you through it. If it's your cousin that has the piece of property, odds are, this one attorney told me this, unless you're a joint mortgagee on the property, there's no financial interest, not a conflict. You would still probably disclose it to
that
me
you know that.
and say, hey, this is owned by my property, my cousin. I have no financial interest, nothing to gain or lose by this, so I'm not going to recuse myself. I'm going to make public aware of that. And you're fine. Okay? But just remember, if it gets dicey, better to bring it to the attention of the town administrator and the town attorney. And they'll keep you covered. All right. As an applicant says, oh, you got a conflict of interest, but you deny all my applications. Is that a conflict of interest?
No.
It wouldn't be if you gave them a reason why.
It wouldn't be if you gave the reason why. What about, this kid I got a fight with in high school? Conflict of interest?
but you should keep your emotions out of it.
That should keep your emotions out. Still maybe a bias,
Yeah.
not a conflict. This is an interest. You're convinced you have a fellow board member has a conflict of interest. What do you do? It's the toughest one of the night.
Just approach them and ask.
Maybe.
you're comfortable with it,
Talk with the staff.
Staff guidance, staff.
staff maybe? There's only one on here that you absolutely should not do. And that's D. Do not come in, ambush somebody in a meeting and say, you got a conflict of interest. Is that build trust or tear down trust? Where's it? And relationships, it's just silly. If you have a good enough relationship, you can talk to the person, do it. If it's a precarious thing, you know, oh, I think this board member had an affair with this applicant, I just don't. You might not want to go to that board member. Oh, the town attorney's been doing that either. I don't know what Melanie's gonna do, so I don't know, I shouldn't have used that example. But there are just some that get dicey. But better to get it out there than to deal with it, than to just ignore it and let it impact and set things back. But it would be easy. Open meetings, you know, it's a simple thing, we covered it. The public has a right to know what information you're using to make decisions on, and they have a right to know what the discussion was. That's pretty much it. So what are the high risk areas of violation? Email. You all have town emails?
Yeah.
Okay, and you do not use your private email for town business?
No.
Okay, do not ever use your private email for town business. Do not ever, Melanie, do you ever send out emails to all board members?
Yes.
You never respond all. You know, I'm gonna take that back, never extremely. If it's, hey, don't forget, the dance is down there, starts at 8 o'clock tonight, you can respond all. Just don't add anything, and I'll be there, I'll be there. Walking or rolling, or 3 of you can't be in the same spot at the same time without noticing it, right? But is it okay for you to talk to her?
Two of us, yeah.
Well, can, like, you go talk to Gary then? It's still just 2 of you.
Yes.
No?
Not about this, yeah. But
Well,
we can
that's
talk,
different.
and I get, my question along with all of this is always, but can I talk to Tilda about her husband and the bake sale, or is that considered?
Well, one-on-one, no question. But if you want to talk to her about how many chickens on a piece of land, you're okay. But you cannot then go and talk to Gary about how many
Same thing,
chickens.
right, that makes sense,
That's a walking forum or a
Okay.
walking forum,
okay, that's
Okay.
what that is.
and you can't poll. So, a lot of times. Towns use administrators wrongfully, and I know you don't do this. Hey, how do you think Gary's gonna vote on this? And they try to take kind of an informal roll call. What's the vote gonna be? We have support for this, or don't we have support for that? You don't get to do that. You have those discussions in an open meeting where everybody can hear what it is and what you're doing. And again, social media, it's easy. Once you pile on in social media and it's about town business, that's a public meeting. Okay? Oh. So you have a really rough meeting and you say, hey, let's just all go for a beer. But okay?
No, that's form.
Gary, you okay?
Good, but still rough.
All I'm gonna take out all this is I'm only. I mean, in terms of things you're saying, I feel like we ought to be robots. Is it okay? No, obviously it's not okay. If that's the purpose, I mean, after a meeting, you go and grab a beer, relax, and mind, okay. I would assume that that's not okay. But if we happen to all meet, like I said, at the street dance, then that's okay. Because it was reconciled, it was a plan, we all want to go to the same event.
You can actually end the meeting
and say, what do you say we all go over, I forget the name of the bar over here, let's go have a beer, drinks around me. You can do that. As long as you don't talk about town business. Now, somebody said it, does it build trust or tear down trust? If you go over and you're in a back corner, what do people think of it?
Talk about town.
Oh, this is the real meeting, this is where it really gets done, right? If you're out on the patio, open to everybody. There's always gonna be the naysayers, but everybody can hear you, right, members of the public, whatever. The danger, and I do have a town that does this a lot, I went to their thing one time. And for the first 20 minutes, it was all about the high school football team and you know, national politics. And it was about 20 minutes in, somebody started talking about a road project in town. Boom, open meeting violation. The second that first piece of town business comes up, an open meeting violation. So don't be scared by having more than 3 people in a place, but be very aware you cannot talk town business. You shouldn't huddle, you shouldn't create any question in the mind of the public that you're trying to hide it. Open and notorious, you're fine. All right? The Immunity Act. That's the one, you want to read that at some point. 2410-101 tells you the things you're going to be immune from, as long as you're acting within the scope of your authority. How do you lose it? You prejudge them. You tell somebody, I'd never approve of subdivision, and then apply for subdivision, you vote against it. You prejudge. You engage in ex parte contacts. You invite people over to your house to get their input on a liquor application. You make a decision that clearly violates established laws. You approve an application that clearly doesn't meet the standards, or you deny something that clearly does meet the standards. You act beyond the scope of your authority. Talk about it. You get into hiring and firing and personnel matters, you're opening yourself up. You ignore or go against publicly given legal advice. So if you're in a meeting and your lawyer gives you advice, think twice about not following it. If you're in executive session, it's not a public meeting. He gives you advice about how to negotiate on something or do something else. It's up to you whether you want to follow that. You're very, very cautious about not following publicly given legal advice. And then again, you act outside of your procedure and your ordinances. Don't do it. But this is the final slide. That's what it means by final thoughts. You don't need to know everything. You can't know everything. You're not going to know everything about sewer treatment plants, your wastewater treatment plant, water treatment plant. You're not going to know everything about every circuit in the auditorium. You're not going to know every pothole in town. You're not going to know every ditch, every irrigation, you're just not going to do it. Use your resources, use your administrator, use the information you get on CML. Don't reinvent the wheel. We talked about use your administrator, but give clear direction. Governing is complicated. It's supposed to be complicated. We don't trust you. We don't trust government. So we want to know why you're deciding the things you do. Take your time, explain it fully, correctly, so everybody knows. They don't have to agree with what you do. They probably won't, but they gotta at least know why you did what you did. You do that, you're building trust. Not necessarily building friends, but you're building trust. Take care of yourself as much as you take care of the community. It's a rough job. You'll come on some issues where you're gonna get people in the public that are just crawling all over you. They'll call you good names and yell at you and they berate you. Don't put up with it here. Be polite. The best tool for somebody who's treating you poorly from this dais, call a recess and walk out. Don't engage. Do not engage. But because of that, take care of yourself. Take care of your physical health. Take care of your mental health. It's important. Take care of your families. All the things that are important to you, because they're still going to be here when your term's up. Okay. And thank you.
Thank you.
We just, hit the gavel, and let the break and walk out.
Take a break, walk them back.
Like,
Means you don't engage with people who are treating you disrespectfully or uncivilly. Shouldn't happen, nor should they put up with it from you guys. It's simple, keep that in mind, build trust. Build trust. Everything you do, if you do that, you're gonna be successful, town's gonna be successful. I'm gonna give you a lot more money.
We have appreciated all the money you have given us.
Well, I honestly have to say, for as small as this town is, the town has done a very good job putting together projects, making good, solid applications. It's a lot of work in that auditorium, putting that together. Keep it up. Don't be afraid of anything I've said. Enjoy it, we'll have best interest for town. Yeah, any other questions, comments?
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, I got you out before 10.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Thank you for your time. Thank you. I made it through without having to go.
I'm running for you now.
Wait, I mean, it needs more money. I can't mean.
No, we're looking forward to that. It's a good review.